With you today and the Republican Study Committee. They're going to be joining me momentarily as we talk about this new reconciliation bill. I want to, as we're starting here, go to our friends at Kalshi and show you right now that actually people believe that there will not be a government shutdown this time. I will tell you, these predictive markets are pretty good. During the last government shutdown, I would have made a pile of money. Because I kind of had a feeling Democrats were going to act out. But this time, the markets have faith that we will not have another government shutdown and that we will be able to get all of the proposals in the new reconciliation bill passed. Let's take a look at them, by the way. I have some behind me here. So I just moved, and I had to find paper. I had a whole. I like to write when I do lives. I like to talk to people. And active notes when I'm on live. And I couldn't find any. So I have comic book backs. I don't know. I had a whole box of notebooks at one point and pens. I don't know where they are though. But I found my my comic book backs from, like bag and board. I don't know if you guys are nerds or not, bag and boards. So these are the backs of comic book holders so that I can write my notes today. But the idea behind this new reconciliation bill, and we're going to talk to a bunch of members about it today, is to make sure that they actually codify President Trump's executive orders, that they make healthcare and housing more affordable, and that they cut off discounts and what funding they can to people who are here illegally. Because there are still a ton of handouts that are going out to a lot of people, putting it on the books that say, hey, which, by the way, shocking to me that it hasn't been on the books. But it has to be said now that illegals can't receive certain discounts in housing, certain discounts in healthcare, that America stops becoming the world's freebie site. So that's one of the things that we're going to be discussing today with multiple members of Congress. I have, let's see the list. Where's this magic list at? So we've got Congressman William Timmons, Congressman Norman, Congressman Rich McCormick. He's one of my favorites. Congressman Pat Harrington, Congresswoman Stephanie Bice, Vice Chair of the Republican Study Committee, Ben Klein, Congressman Randy Weber, another one of my favorites. I like all these guys, by the way. Congressman Tim Moore, Congressman Begich, and Congressman Stutzman and Crank will be joining us today, and maybe also Miller and Harris. Going to be a good day today. I also want to talk about gerrymandering with everyone when they come in today to kind of have this talk, because we're seeing now it looks like the state of Maryland is going to, because of course they're run by Marxists there, are going to eliminate another congressional seat. What we're doing to combat this in home districts, I think it's very important that Republicans are fighting back against that as well. I need to pin this to let's pin this to the top of my page. Again, I want to thank you guys for joining me today, and we're going to have a good day today. 3 hours we're going to be with you on all platforms, and I'm looking forward to having the conversation with you. I'm also going to have a couple of the friends dropping in here outside of Congress. I've got Andrew Follett, one of the smartest guys I know in politics, is coming in about an hour to hang out, actually a half hour, to talk about all of the kind of climate grifty spending and things that we waste money on in this environmentalism and the green scam, as well as I think our friend Shell is going to drop in and hang out for a little bit today. So it's going to be a very, very exciting day. I'm excited to be here with you. Make sure you hit the retweet button. I need to actually do, and by the way, you can tell how much I have my new studio set up before we have the screen set up in here. I have my old whiteboard and me with no fancy lighting today. This is a very raw live stream, hanging out with everybody here today. Looking forward to having the conversation with you all. And I'm going to make sure that I myself go and retweet this live. Excited to be here with you. And there we go. Make sure we get that going. And I am very excited again. We're going to have a lot of members joining us today, and the numbers are going to start moving around as well. Make sure that if you have comments, questions, anything you want, you're going to be a part of this conversation, you are welcome to drop in and ask questions in the chat. I know we are on Rumble, we are on X, and we are on YouTube at the same time. So I believe we have our first guest already. Congressman from South Carolina's 4th Congressional District, Congressman Timmons. Let me get you actually up to how about a normal size instead of a tiny guy in the corner. There we go. Hey, how you doing, sir?
Good morning. Great to be with you.
Hey, I got to tell you, like, I'm excited about this. And apparently, the predictive markets say there is not going to be a government shutdown this time with this reconciliation bill. We're going to get it through. What's it feel like right now in Congress before we get to the details of it? This one's going to get through. No government shutdown, right?
It seems that way. And honestly, it's a little bit surprising. I kind of foresaw a shutdown. There's supposed to be 15 to 20 inches of snow in DC on Saturday. So if we don't get it done on Thursday, then we're probably not going to get it done for a while. But it seems that we have the votes and that we're going to fund the government. It's almost like we can do our job for once.
It's a crazy concept. And not just that, but there's some big moves here in healthcare, big moves in housing, big moves in actually being America first. But I don't, by the way, what is it? Today is Wednesday. Wednesday. Saturday, I'm supposed to get a foot of snow here in Fort Worth. So that is Armageddon. 1 inch of snow is Armageddon here. We don't know how to handle snow. You guys do in South Carolina. You actually get it. So I really do hope it gets done this week. So let's talk about this. There are a bunch of things that are going to be moving with this bill. And before we even go there, you were on the DOGE subcommittee. Are we getting some cuts out of this?
Not really in this bill that we're doing, but overall, we've been able to codify some of the DOGE cuts. But we're probably going to have to use reconciliation for that because the Democrats won't go along with it. But we're going to do one more reconciliation package this year, so we will be able to codify more there. But I think the most important thing is that all of the underlying language is going to be reset, and it's going to be Republican language as opposed to previous continuing resolutions is all Biden era funding. So the devil's in the details, and the crazy stuff that the Biden admin put into government funding packages is all gone, and so that's why we need to pass this bill Thursday.
There's a big piece of this that if people read it, it's not a sexy piece of it, but it's massive for taxpayer dollars. A big part of this is ensuring that only actual American citizens count for purposes of allocating funding to states. That saves billions, does it not?
It does, and it makes sure that taxpayer dollars are only going to the people that deserve it. So, the waste, fraud, and abuse we've seen throughout all these different government social safety nets is just insane. I mean, the Minnesota fraud was uncovered $9 billion. I mean, that's just one state. And that's only 6 million people in the state. So, we've got to get to the bottom of this. We don't have the ability to keep spending money we don't have, and we shouldn't be spending money on people that aren't U.S. citizens. So it's a no-brainer, and we're very fortunate we were able to get it in there.
I mean, how much this time around, just because of timing and all the stories and things come out, how much has that story about the Somalian fraud and the more that we see of these daycare frauds in every state, how much has that affected the policy making now?
Well, look, we knew all along that there was fraud, and that was the purpose of DOGE. And then obviously the next step of that is to audit all of these programs. And so we had our hearing in the Oversight Committee 2 weeks ago, and the Judiciary Committee is having it today. The investigative journalist, Nick Shirley, is actually going to be testifying today in Judiciary. So that's going to be interesting. But again, we shouldn't have to have a 24-year-old investigative journalist to uncover this fraud. The media needs to do its job. The legacy media is covering up all of this, and it's ridiculous. And I mean, they got to get their head out of the sand.
I want to stick with the reconciliation bill. That's what you're here to talk about. But you're a former prosecutor. What do you think is going to happen? There's so much that we're seeing with these folks in Minneapolis. Just for people who may not know, there's a long process to be able to, like, say you're furious as I am about the folks who went into the church the other day and harassed that church service. That you can't just go and arrest them, right? You have to actually build the case first.
Well, they were trespassing, and law enforcement refused to do anything about it. So, they have a right to bang pots and scream and yell on the street in a public area. But if you are on private property and the person that controls that property asks you to leave, you are then trespassing. It's as simple as that. And then there's also all these other federal laws about impeding people's right to worship. But I mean, the easiest one is trespassing, and they were very clearly trespassing. The pastor is the person that was in charge of that church, and he said, you need to leave, and they refused to leave. And so at that point in South Carolina, the law enforcement would come in and arrest everybody, and they'd all take them to jail. But in Minnesota, they're not doing that. And they're not doing that intentionally because the governor and the mayors and the attorney general, they all are complicit in this. And that's why the Department of Justice has issued subpoenas, because if we can find evidence that the governor or the mayor told law enforcement to not enforce the rule of law, that's going to be it's going to be fun.
I have a law degree I don't use. I went to law school and don't do anything with it. So, well, other than write my own contracts and then yell about policy, but so it will be actually kind of fun to watch. So this bill is actually going to be called. Back to this, I'm doing a real non sequitur interview here. I'm the worst. Sorry. The bill's going to be called the Making America Dream Affordable Again Act. Can you describe like what this means, like the bullet points, what this means for just me? Like I'm a normie guy out here in Texas. What am I going to see other than, I'll be able to travel and not get yelled at extra by TSA agents when they're not getting paid? How will this directly impact me once this bill is passed?
Well, so one, it's still a work in progress. The biggest issue is trying to find offsets. So in order to use reconciliation, it has to be revenue neutral, and there's a lot of rules surrounding it. So one of the things that I think is going to save a lot of money, and it's going to allow us to use a lot of our priorities and pay for a lot of our priorities, is going to be using technology to make sure that social safety nets are going to the people that deserve them. I've been working on this. I almost got it in the last reconciliation. It's called the TABS Act. And what it does is it says, to confirm your income. So there's 15 means tested social safety nets. And what that is that you have to make less than a certain amount of money in order to be eligible for them, whether that's SNAP benefits, whether it's Medicaid, the list goes on and on. But the way that people currently are deemed eligible is they fill out a form and they give, some basic W-2 basic tax records, and it's really inefficient and it's inaccurate. It's overwhelmingly inaccurate. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use technology to log into your bank account, log into your Venmo, your Zelle, your Cash App, and they will be able to give you benefits immediately, and they will take you off those benefits when you make too much money. But what that's going to do is, in a pilot program in Missouri, it saved 20%. It saved 20%. So 20% of $1.5 trillion in annual social safety nets is, $200+ billion. So that's going to be one of the ways that I think we can get some pay-fors. And so once we get the pay-fors, we can then work our policies in, whether it's increased money for ICE agents, for border security, whether it's streamlining TSA, all these things that we can do. In the first part is the pay-for, though, and that's the hard part.
How efficient has government become in auditing itself? I know that you, again, like we talked about being on the DOJ committee.
We're moving in the right direction. So yeah. The Democrats screamed and yelled when Elon Musk got in there. And what people don't realize is that he created a system. All the different government agencies contracted for their their payment processing systems at different times. And so they're literally all on different programs. It's different software. And Treasury is responsible for making payments. Congress authorizes and appropriates. Treasury then sends the money. And there was no real way to confirm that the money was going where it was supposed to go, because all these different systems weren't communicating. So the number one thing that DOJ did was create a single system. So now, just from a ones and zeros perspective, from a technology perspective, we can track authorized, appropriated, and make sure it gets to where it's supposed to go. And the devil's always in the details, because the Democrats use these systems and then they give money to 501c3, which then turns around and funds these ridiculous projects that nobody would ever want to do. We caught them with USAID, and obviously that is now under the Secretary of State. And we're continuing to find all of these different government programs where Democrats use taxpayer dollars to it's basically money laundering. Yeah. It's money laundering. And so they fund these projects. We're catching it left and right. And it's because of the work of the DOJ the Doge teams with the administration and the Doge committee here in Congress. So we're moving in the right direction. But the biggest thing is the transparency and the accountability to make sure that we're tracking government dollars, tracking taxpayer dollars. It's what every American expects.
In 2008, I used to sell into the federal government for LexisNexis, the kind of like the licensing and people tracking software stuff. I don't know. I'm sure you're familiar with Lexis.
Oh yeah.
And at that time, we did a quick sample of Medicare and Medicaid potential fraud, just people that didn't have licenses that were getting paid, and it was in the billions of dollars just in a few states. We've gotten better at that, right? We actually are we using AI now? Are we actually following up and checking into licensing and things as well?
We're working on it. We're working on it. Look, the federal government moves very slow, and as we adopt new technology, as we start using the work of the Doge teams, we're going to uncover more and more, and we're going to root it out, but it's going to take time. The federal government's enormous. Yeah. And I mean, the number of people that no longer work there just in the last year because of the right sizing of government that President Trump and his team have done. I mean, it's staggering how many federal employees there are. It's staggering the inefficiency. And the last administration was just insane. They wanted to use government. All they wanted to do was grow government to then use taxpayer dollars to restructure society. And it's socialism, and it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And so we got $37 trillion in debt. We got a $2 trillion annual deficit, and we have to right size government. We have to grow the economy. And that's what President Trump's doing. I'm not sure if you watched earlier when he was speaking in Davos, but I mean, that's what he's talking about. He's talking about growing the economy in order to make the $37 trillion of debt we have less important. Because if, right now we're at 120-ish% debt to GDP ratio. If we grow the economy to 50, 60, 70 trillion dollars annual GDP, it's going to make a huge difference, because the amount of debt is irrelevant. It's the debt to GDP ratio that matters. And we've been moving in the wrong direction, and staggering Q1 growth is expected. So, I mean, we're getting there. We're getting there.
Well, I'm glad we have congressmen like you in that understand how to do this and how to right the ship. And of course, President Trump's hard work. I'm very excited to get this reconciliation bill passed. Like I said, Kalshi, the predictive market says that there probably will not be a shutdown. I think it's down to an 11% chance of a shutdown, which is pretty good. So America has faith in you guys. I have faith in you guys. And I'm looking forward to all the great things that are kind of come out of the bill.
Hey, thank you. Fingers crossed for Thursday. And hopefully we don't get a foot of snow, because I don't know what's going to happen. It's going to be bad.
Again, and no voting from home. Everybody needs to be in DC. So make sure you guys are camped out in your little cubby holes in the Capitol for this. Unfortunately, one of the painful things, other than bill markups in committees, I'd imagine that you guys have to go through, is waiting out snow to vote. But thank you for what you do.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks. Congressman Timmons from South Carolina, bringing in now Congressman Ralph Norman from South Carolina, one of his colleagues. How you doing, sir?
Good morning. Glad to be with you.
Thanks for being here. I'm looking forward to this. It actually looks like we're going to get it done quickly this time. What is your hope with the reconciliation bill?
Well, I've got high hopes for it. I mean, we're working our way toward regular order. The old way of doing business in this, I guess, for the last 30 years is, to punt the ball on first down. We've got to handle the 12 approach. We've had to shut down. We will take up, I'm on the Rules Committee. We'll have 4 bills today. We'll have some amendments that hopefully will make a difference. But I'm optimistic. The downside, and I think William may have touched on this, the downside of not passing this bill with these series of bills with all the imperfections, you get a far worse if it fails. And the spending has got to stop. I mean, we can grow the economy, but it's spending. It's, we've got to at some point handle that. But this takes the first step. We had a great caucus meeting this morning, and people are optimistic about it. And is it perfect? No, but it's a step in the right direction.
Congressman, you're one of the guys who I believe speaks the truth in saying that we need to codify all of President Trump's executive orders. Why haven't we done it yet? Is it just because of all kind of the Democrats and how bills have been kind of pushed around and all of the things they can do to impede this?
That's a factor. I mean, I know how they're going to vote before they even go in the chambers. It's hate Trump syndrome, and that's just the way it is. That being said, with executive orders, the great news about what President Trump has done is put them on the table. He's had to go through executive order, which, as you know, is temporary. We have got a rush to get these codified. I think he's only been in office now. This is his first year, and look at what a difference has made for the country. Now, the next step is making it permanent in law, so that the next administration, if it's a liberal one, cannot undo it without going through the process of the House and the Senate. But I know it's just been a helter-skelter year. I think it's, what he's done on shutting the border down, what he's done on supporting our law enforcement, all of that has taken a lot of oxygen out of the room with getting it done, particularly when you have a party now, which is now a total socialist party, who is opposing him at every level. So I think we'll codify a lot of them. And it's kind of like the rescission package, of $9 billion. You would think what Elon Musk identified, which is everything he showed of where our dollars were going, particularly with USAID, is a misuse of taxpayers' funds. And he highlighted that. But we were able to get the rescission package of $9 billion done, but it should have been far more. I mean, we could have easily done anywhere from 20 billion on up because, and again, as William mentioned, we got a $39 trillion deficit, not counting Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, and we got to deal with it at some point. But I guess a short way of saying it, we're on the right path.
You find $9 billion worth of fraud just going into Minneapolis and Minnesota. That's kind of a small state on the grand scheme of things, especially when we're talking about blue states. How much fraud have you guys been kind of digging? How much fraud do you think is out there, and how much money could we have paid off our national debt with if we would have stopped the fraud?
I think you could take all 50 states and have a Doge type study of all 50 states and the fraud that's there, and really just the lack of oversight. Take Medicaid. Take those who are illegally getting our tax dollars. That should be front and center stage to cut immediately. And it takes a long time to move the needle when you deal with government. And you got the previous administration, what they termed as new job creation was in the federal government. And, it wasn't in the private sector. And that's what President Trump has done while he's decreasing inflation. He's putting jobs into the private sector, not government. We're cutting government, and we just got to do more of it.
Do we give the most handouts of any country to illegal aliens when they cross our borders?
The sad fact is I would answer yes. And, we've got 20 million that we estimate are in this country illegally, who are tapping the reserves of this country that we shouldn't have that. And when you compound that with the fact that America is the most generous nation on the face of the earth, we help other countries to no end. The press will never report that. They report all the things that in their minds are things that are bad. No, we're a democracy, and we're promoting democracy all over this world. And but when you count the things going to illegals, when you count the fraud, waste, fraud, and abuse in so many of the agencies, and really when you count the particularly with onslaught of COVID, which is over with, when you take out that so many bureaucrats were hired, we haven't gotten to the bottom of people who are not even showing up to work. The buildings are dark, and that's a whole new story that we've got to delve into and just cite the facts for the American people.
Well, it's you said count enough times. I have to ask you a question about counting, because why is it that illegals are counting towards the amount of money that we send to states currently? I know that's one of the biggest things that you're going to help fix with this reconciliation bill. But boy, can spending get out of control if you're just going to count all of the just heads in a state instead of American citizens, right?
It makes no sense. I mean, in the private sector, you couldn't do that.
Yeah.
It's like a business. It's like a McDonald's counting people as workers who never show up. And it's no different than what the federal government has done. But you got to remember, we've had 4 years of the Biden administration, which totally raped this country. That's the best way I know to say it. And the president in 1 year has righted so many of the wrongs, but there's so many holes in the dam that we need to fix, but I think we will fix it. And I guess the other thing I've learned is every dollar spent has got an advocate for it. And they come out of the woodwork when you cut any type program because they're used to getting it. And again, that's got to be reversed because we simply cannot afford it. And it's going to take bold action by bold people, and hopefully that'll occur.
I hope so too. I've just seen, just in that one instance recently, billions of dollars of fraud, and it's got to stop. And allowing that money to continue to flow to states only encourages that fraud. So I'm glad that you guys are on top of it there in Congress in the Republican Study Committee.
But you know what's interesting too is take the example of the $9 billion that is apparently there in Minnesota. The brassness of them not taking ownership of it. I mean, that's not a rounding error. That's not a comma that's missing. And for them, and I talked to Tom Emmer early this morning, people in Minnesota looking for Washington to correct it. No, Minnesota's going to have to correct it. Just like in South Carolina, we're going to have to correct any misappropriated money. All the states have got to take ownership, but the arrogance of a Tim Walsh and of a mayor who is advocating things that the American people, I think, find appalling.
Well, just before they started cheering for the rioters there in Minnesota, Tim Walsh said he wasn't going to run for re-election because he knows what's coming down the line. He knows he's going to have to take responsibility for it at some point, or at least another Democrat will try to hold him, in their quest for power, hold him in check. But Congressman, thank you for being here today, and I'm looking forward to getting this bill passed.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Coming up next, we've got one of my favorite guys, I think, Congressman Rich McCormick. How you doing, sir?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Georgia 7th, right? I'm doing all right. I have to remember where everybody's from today. I have my little list on the side, and I have you saw my garbage old studio, and this is the beginning of the new one here in Fort Worth. So one day I'll get you back out to this one too. But thanks for being here. This reconciliation package, a lot of healthcare stuff is involved here, making healthcare much more affordable for the American people. You happen to be an expert on that. Can you speak to that and tell people what they're going to get when this bill gets passed?
Sure. I mean, it's a great start. It's not complete. I mean, there's so much work to be done. When you talk about the vertical integration of PBMs and in the healthcare industry that's polluted by waste, fraud, and abuse, especially since the Obama administration came up with the Non-Affordable Care Act, which has increased your premiums by about nearly 100%, has increased the profitability of these insurance companies by several 100%, which has increased your co-pays, your deductibles. Nothing good has come of that. So what this basically does is empowers people to make some choices. First of all, when you get transparency, you can actually make a choice between which programs offer what. Most people really, especially if you're young and healthy, benefit off of minimal insurance. You pay out of pocket, and then whatever you have for catastrophic, you pay extra. Otherwise, you get these massive insurance premiums that you don't need because you quite frankly don't use them. I know a friend of mine just recently wanted to get just one little procedure, but the procedure itself was thousands of dollars, but that was not even as much as the deductible, the copay. And so there's still gonna have to be this massive amount for the premium, which for the average family of four is over $30,000. That's the price of a car per year, whether you use it or not. That's insane. We got to right size everybody's insurance policy. Imagine if you use your car insurance to pay for it if a blinker goes bad. That blinker replacement costs $500. It'd probably come out of your deductible. Plus, every time you change your car oil, it would cost several $100s. Why? Because the insurance company has to add their administrative costs, and they have to fight over who does the billing and whether it's necessary. It just makes it a nightmare. Matter of fact, the perfect example is LASIK eye surgery. Never been covered by insurance. It's elective. And it still costs the same as it did about 40 years ago. Because why? The insurance industry didn't get involved in it, and government didn't get involved in it. As soon as they do, the price point goes up dramatically, and that's what we're fighting against. President Trump put in transparency, and put the money back into people's hands so they can make decisions rather than be cornered into an insurance policy that they don't want.
It's incredible to me, all the costs that come up with insurance policies, because I had to go. I went to the doctor and needed just a real simple prescription a couple of weeks ago, and they asked me, because I went without insurance. It saved me money. They asked me how much or what insurance I had, and I said, "Hey, if I tell you I have insurance, doesn't the price go up on this medicine?" And he looked at it and he goes, "Yeah, my prescription would have been like $20, $25, but I ended up paying $2 for the same thing." And it's wild when you dig into the nuances of all the hands that go into the pharmaceutical industry and all the hands that go into the medical industry. On top of that, when you have funds going that's supposed to go to American citizens that are increasing because of, you can count illegal heads and bodies to send money to states, that encourages people to want to collect more money as well, not just in the medical field, but in other fields, right?
The dirty little secret. Yeah, actually, your example is perfect. It's a self-licking ice cream cone. It's built-in harassment. It's a program incentivizing you to use your insurance company for things you shouldn't be using it. And you're thinking, well, everybody does it. Yeah, everybody does it, and everybody's being punished simultaneously. For example, that prescription I wrote you, if you would have filled it by your insurance company, first of all, they charge a different rate. So the out-of-pocket rate, which is cheap, like you said, maybe a couple dollars, maybe $10. Instead, you use your insurance card. Now your copay costs more than the actual medication it would have been out of pocket. Plus, then the insurance company gets charged additional, or the pharmaceutical gets charge your insurance company way above that, by the way. And then they get to add the 10% profit on that by law. So that $2 prescription you got costs you $100. That sounds crazy, but it's absolutely a perfect example of why this is a built-in harassment. They're all in on it, by the way. The insurance companies love it when things are expensive because they make a 10% profit. The more expensive your healthcare is, the more profit they make. Same thing with hospital systems. When they monopolize a system, it costs about 30% more for a doctor to work for the hospital than work outside the hospital system. Yet the Affordable Care Act has forced a tremendous number of doctors to work for the hospital systems because they don't get the same reimbursements outside the hospital as they do inside the hospital. Perfect example. Since the beginning of the Affordable Care Act, we had about 30% of all doctors work for hospital systems. Now it's nearly 80%. Wow. That's a 30% increase for every one of those doctors, which is over 50% of all doctors. Think about the tremendous price. And then we wonder, why did healthcare become more expensive? And oh, by the way, that doesn't mean doctors make more. They actually make 30% less when adjusted for inflation. So this is all built in. The two people that benefit or most from a relationship, which is the doctors and the patients, are the ones that are being punished. Everybody else is making massive amount of money off it in a $5 trillion industry. It's a absolutely robbery for Americans. And oh, by the way, those insurance companies deny 30% of all claims, and they're accepting hundreds of thousands of false policies, and they don't get penalized for either. They have impunity. We need to go after these guys and make them accountable when they're making tens of billions of dollars off of us, the people.
How many extra hands are in, like, say, let's just talk about like pharmaceuticals, right? So how many extra companies, how many extra hands are in, as opposed to pharmaceutical company, a doctor, pharmacist, patient?
Well,
how many other hands are in that?
Yeah, it's much more complex because that's just the pharmaceutical industry, which is vertically integrated with the PBMs. In other words, the PBMs are linking both the insurance industry, the physician, the pharmaceuticals. You have to have a special coupon. You have to go through a certain company. And oh, by the way, they put the good actors out of business if you don't play ball with them because they control everything. They're not good actors. And every time we try to do PBM reform, they push back on us. But it's the pharmaceutical companies and the PBMs, the insurance companies. And oh, by the way, if you don't think this is a reality of profiteering, think about the top 10 Fortune 5 companies in America are either insurance companies or pharmaceuticals. 7 of the top 20. This is the biggest profiteering scheme in America, and the taxpayers are paying the bill. It's the biggest cost to American government. It's the biggest cost to taxpayers, second biggest cost to all businesses, and the second largest inflationary cost to Americans. This is our biggest push to fix this year.
And the wild thing is, for me in particular, and I follow this stuff obviously religiously, it's my career. I just heard about PBMs 3 days ago. The first time. And it is incredible, and I think people need to start waking up to it. And I'm happy to start talking more and more about this issue too. So, are we going to be able to regulate them more and be able to start to right the ship with this reconciliation bill then?
So what we have to be careful is not turn back to the government to fix the problem that the government created. This is all by design. The Democrats got everything they wanted, and everything that's happening right now is by their design. They voted for it. Now they're saying, well, the Republicans should be able to fix it. They have control of the House, the Senate, and the presidency. Yeah, but we need a few extra senators from the Democrats to help fix your mess that you put us on this timeline for. The problem with trying to fix this, it requires an enormous overhaul. I think what President Trump has proposed is a great step in the right direction, but we need we actually need to deregulate, not regulate more, but deregulate, make it easier for companies to compete with each other, make transparency, people can make choices, give different programs so you can actually get catastrophic insurance, and then have a tax sheltered health savings account waiting on the sidelines to pay out-of-pocket expenses like you've had recently, where you're not penalized for paying cash and getting the best price possible.
Yeah, $2 for my prescription. Again, like it's and people wouldn't know, and I don't think many Americans do know just how much money they're paying out of pocket when. Again, it just helps. I dated a pharmacist at one point. That's how I went in the system. Congressman Rich McCormick, thanks for joining us again. And thank you for being, you were a successful doctor before you came in and did this. You kind of done it all. I mean, the military and doctor and all. But having somebody who understands how the system works to help reform the system is what we need in D.C. And thanks for being that guy.
It's my pleasure. God bless you and simplify.
Talk to you soon. All right, now I got some friends. Not that these people aren't my friends anyway, but I've got Shell hanging out, and also if Andrew Follett learns how to turn on his camera, love to have.
I'm having some problems with that.
I saw your face for a second. Shell, how you doing?
All right, Tim, how are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. We are.
How's everything going so far?
Good. We've gotten. We had Congressman Timmons, Congressman Norman, and Congressman, of course, Rich McCormick was just with us there. Not a bad day today.
Nice.
Covering all of the nuances of this reconciliation bill. And when you have experts like Rich McCormick coming in and my experience just literally the other day with medicine, I don't know if you heard this part, Shell, when you realize that there are these PBMs that are kind of these middle managers and pharmaceutical businesses that help drive up the costs. And of course, how insurance works. The other day when I needed a prescription, and again, like with insurance, it would have been like $20 or whatever it was with a copay, but it was $2 without insurance. And so
Wow.
that is a regular occurrence. And I don't think a lot of people realize just how many hands are in the pharmaceutical industry and in the medical industry that are driving the costs up.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's pretty much a scam on the American people, and President Trump and the Republican Congress are trying to fix that.
It has been for a long time, Tim.
Yeah.
A long time.
Yeah. Well, Andrew can't figure out I don't understand how this guy. Hold on. I got video and I got him on video and on his phone, apparently. Is what's happening.
There we go. Yeah, sorry about
Andrew.
By the
sorry
way,
about that.
Andrew Follett is, I've known him for a decade now because we're old. And he is one of the foremost experts on exposing the climate scam and the energy scam from the left and how they kind of reach in and try to destroy things. What have you been working on? And also, he lives in Virginia, where he's going to lose all of his rights coming up. It's very exciting. Unless you're a criminal, you can feel free to go commit heinous crimes now in Virginia and not have mandatory minimums. I mean, what's going on there, Andrew?
Well, the Democrats took over. So they're literally the first thing they did was try to effectively ban paper ballot audits in Virginia right after they raised taxes. So those bills are currently before the committee, and they will almost certainly enact those, as Democrats have the governorship, the state house, and the state senate, and the Democrats in question who have those positions are absolutely insane Democrats.
It's wild to me.
Is there any Democrat that's not insane besides?
There are levels of the insanity.
Yeah.
I will say. Listen,
I can't think of one.
I'm gonna give credit. He doesn't vote the right way, but John Fetterman does say the right things.
Now Fetterman, yeah, I can agree with that too.
Yeah, he has been, and actually, I met him. We flew together by accident from Pittsburgh once, and a very kind man. So, you know, and we talked about what each other did, and, you know, he's not a hateful guy. And I just feel like the temperature has been raised intentionally by the left to, in Minneapolis in particular, to ignore the fraud, waste, and abuse that literally the Somali scheme. Like we just, you know, speaking with the congressman earlier, you know, the Tim Walz and his administration knew and knows what's happening there. It comes out from them. It's not the federal government's job to correct. It's the state's job to correct. $9 billion, I believe it was Congressman Norman said, that's not a you know, a decimal point error. $9 billion is them. There has to be something else going on there. And so
They're laundering it. Come on.
yeah. But this is part of the reconciliation bill to state, because I'm gonna be really good about staying on topic today. But part of the reconciliation bill, making sure that the headcount in states for the money to go to states for these programs, for government funded programs, are just American citizens and not illegals as well, which then cuts back the funding for the potential fraud to come out of. So it's a step in the right direction, but there are so many steps that have to go. There's so much that has to be corrected. Follett, what have you been following lately? Not just
So I've been, as a Virginian, and someone who does a lot of politics, I've been following the fraud, quite frankly, and how that they have been effectively attempting to legalize it.
yeah.
So
I mean,
that's my primary focus right now.
I just don't understand how people don't throw a red flag when one of the first bills that a political party does is eliminate hand counting of ballots.
Yes. So what they're doing is they're limiting they are making it illegal to access paper ballot backups. So right now in most states in America, if you go in, you scan the little electronics, your paper ballot in the electronic scanner. If there is a disputed election, or it's very, very close, they can go back and they can manually count the ballot, like the paper. So the paper exists, you can check it, right? And that's what they're banning. They're banning the process to check it. So look, I know a lot about elections. There's no good reason to do this. There is no reason at all to do this.
Yeah.
The only good reason for them is to cheat, right? To have
Yes.
full control and manipulation, and then they don't have any accountability after that. So, I mean,
Yes.
why not? They get away with everything else, right? This
Yes.
is infuriating to me, that their audacity to do something like this to the American citizens or their own constituents there, that, you know, their vote's not going to be valid. What is it going to mean anymore? It's not going to mean anything.
They're devaluing I'm a Virginian, and I've lived here I've lived here since I was 4. So they're devaluing my vote by allowing this, and they're making it so like the Soviet Union had elections, right? They didn't decide anything,
Yeah.
but they did have the election. Like you could only vote for one candidate, but they did have the election, and that is the Democrats' goal here: to have elections and democracy, but the elections are completely meaningless.
Yeah.
So in 2 previous elections, in the 2020 and 2022 elections, our governor, Abigail Spanberger, who was then a congresswoman, she was losing. She was way down, right? With 99% of the vote in. And this is not me saying this. This is Meet the Press. Like, you know, the most normal mainstream outlet. So there was 99% of the vote in, and she was way down. And mysteriously, she came back. And this happened twice. And one of those times, they found ballots on a flash drive that had been allegedly improperly not counted. And those ballots were 80% for Spanberger. And the person who found the flash drive was a Spanberger donor. I'm sure that was a total coincidence.
It's magic. It's magic. And that was
Yeah,
yeah,
we
Nick
call it-
Freitas was running against her, right?
What was that, Tim?
Wasn't Nick Freitas running against her?
Yes, this was the 2020 election against Nick Freitas. In Virginia, we have a joke about Fairfax magic, because what will often happen is you'll have these very large counties that will report last for no good reason, basically. So there's a lot of different types of dubious stuff. Spanberger's is the most obviously dubious, let me put it that way. Like, she probably did win the 2025 election. Like, that was a huge margin. But her 2020 and 2022 elections for Congress were extremely dubious.
Wow.
Seems to happen a lot lately.
Yeah. So like there's different kinds of fraud, right? So what happened a lot in 2020 was you had officials normally at the state level just saying, okay, because of COVID, we're not going to enforce this election rule.
Yeah.
And on their own authority. That is why turnout went up so much, because they stopped enforcing election rules, basically. There was a real one of the ones that people forget about was the 2018 election in Florida for now Senator Rick Scott, when Miami-Dade County just basically flat out cheated. And this got caught, and people figured it out, and they kept the ballots segregated. So once ballots are mixed, no court will ever overturn that, right? It's not going to happen. But once ballots are mixed, it's over. But they kept the ballots separated from Miami-Dade, and then it turned out that those were not valid, and Senator Scott was elected. But that was a very close election.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. It is really actually, I don't know if it's not disheartening, but it's just kind of scary. I still feel like we can fight against it, but who knows?
I would disagree. I think it's actually a massive white pill and a massive good thing, because even with this, it's still a 50-50 country.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's actually a good thing in a way.
The other side of it too, and like I'll get Shell's opinion on this. Like you saw, like, why would you eliminate mandatory minimums for horrific crimes? Like, what is the purpose of that? Anybody?
I don't know the purpose. Just to I don't know. They're just so soft on crime, and now they're soft on judgment, and they're soft on everything. What they want them back out as soon as possible. And so they set a minimum that they can give them every time instead of giving a maximum for some horrific crime. I don't understand it, Tim.
If I could, Tim, do you know how Joseph Stalin rose to power in Russia? He was a bank robber. I am dead serious. Leftist movements often embrace criminal elements because they're useful.
Didn't know that. I did not know that about Stalin.
It was actually the largest bank robbery in history, arguably. I'll send you a thing on.
I had no idea.
Yeah, he was a bank robber.
It's okay to be socialist when you earn your money that way. Huh?
Yeah, he killed like 40 people doing it too. It was really, really nasty. He like threw bombs.
That's incredible. I had no idea. That's
but corruption,
you teach me things like every time we hang out. Like I learned something about.
But corruption like that is a tool of power. It's rewarding your friends and punishing your enemies. So when they let criminals out of prison, they see that as rewarding their friends, basically.
Yeah. Jim Bob, thanks for joining us today. Joe, good morning, Joe. Good morning, Quincy. Guys, thanks for coming in and hanging out. If you want to get your comments in, we're going to have some more congressmen coming up in about 3 minutes. We're going to have Congressman Pat Harrigan, reading. North Carolina's 10th, and he's a U.S. Special Army Forces veteran who actually spent time in the Middle East. And he's going to be talking about one of the wild things that's been going on, where we give discounts and low-income housing credits to illegals, which, I mean, why not live here? Why not just cross the border and come in and just get every handout you can possibly have? Because it's all free. It's just totally incentivized here.
North Carolina, unfortunately, has been inundated with these people fleeing, like, Maine or New York, Massachusetts, and it's really changing the demographic there. They're a deep purple now, and it's unfortunate. I am, very concerned about North Carolina and my friends there, like Margot in Western North Carolina, who's doing a lot of work there for the GOP, trying to bring up good candidates, get them across the line. But man, what are we going to do about this? Because now we have, New York, the escape from New York scenario literally happening now, and we're all in trouble.
Yeah, no, everybody's moving from New York. Do you know the stats on that right now, Followed? I feel like you'd be somebody who would know like the numbers.
Well, it's huge. I don't know off the top of my head, but particularly out of California and New York, it's enormous. And the thing is, voting is an inherently aspirational and altruistic action for most people. when people flee their old state, they bring their politics with them. They don't change their vote just because their old state was awful.
It's as if they can't put two and two together as to why they've left. In a lot of these instances, and in particular, New York, it's like Mom Donnie is so far left that everyone's going to be pretty much broke, and they're going to have to go to their breadline city-run grocery stores, which have never worked in the history of America or the world, for that matter. But he's going to put those in, and we're going to watch New York slowly crumble, and then all of the radical leftists who voted for him will go to states like North Carolina, South Carolina, right down the coast. My state of Texas is very popular as well, because they're like, oh, it's great there and there's no tax and yada, yada. And then they will try to then vote for the exact same blue people who will put those rules back in place in good places.
Yeah.
How do we stop it?
Well, there's a bunch of things you can do. So notably, I would say that one, being aware of it and getting involved is the first step. I know a whole lot of people who will personally say, like, voting is not the only thing you have to do to be involved in politics. You have to volunteer, you have to donate, you have to do all these other things. I know a lot of people who would go, I'll die for Trump, but they won't knock a door for him. Like, you need to knock the doors too. And most importantly, being a poll watcher is exceedingly important. A lot of the stuff that we only won the 2018 Florida Senate election, which, you know, that's a huge win. That's Senator Scott now. We only won that because there were poll watchers. We only won the 2024 Pennsylvania Senate election. Now, Trump won Pennsylvania by Trump outran most of the down ballot Republicans, including the current senator from Pennsylvania, who's a Republican, not Fetterman, the other one. And they only won that because they had a very litigious and aggressive poll watching and what's called ballot curation. Are you familiar with this, Tim?
Yeah, but can we talk about it in a little bit? I want to get back to that in a second
Sure.
because we have Congressman Pat Harrigan joining us right now. And I will I'm going to let, well, I'll just bring him in with you guys. Here we go. Here we go. Congressman Pat Harrigan, welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, Tim. Great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Listen, you're 38. What am I doing with my life? I'm 45. I mean, you're a member of Congress. You've served everywhere and done some great work. I feel like I need to catch up.
Well, I'd say you're the smart one, Tim, but here we are.
Listen, you are one of President Trump's biggest supporters when it comes to stopping this border invasion and making sure that, like, one of the craziest things is that there are low-income housing tax credits for illegal aliens and non-permanent residents, which is mind-blowing to me. Like, shouldn't that go to Americans first? But that would be an America First policy, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question about it, right? Like, look, I'm one that believes that we shouldn't have any welfare if you're not a American citizen, period.
Yes.
I don't know how you guys feel about it, but it's just gotten so lopsided. And I think people don't understand exactly the extent to which we are supporting and subsidizing those who are not American citizens and aren't actually being productive members of our society. That's got to stop. There's a lot of work that's been done in this Congress to try to tackle that problem. But it's just, I mean, look, I think everybody understands, like, we're a year into President Trump's presidency. We're a year and 2 weeks into this Congress. And I could tell you, like, everybody up here is working super hard to try to actually get things across the finish line. And it's exhausting, right? Like, it is the amount of work that actually has to get done to get this country back on the right track. It is such an extensive body of work. I don't think very many people actually appreciate how difficult it is. And then to actually get it across the finish line here, when you're dealing with a lot of different flavors of Republicans, certainly when you've got to get 60 votes in order to get anything across the floor of the Senate, it's a really, really tough problem set. But there are very real problems that exist, that are going to continue to exist, that President Trump is trying to solve with executive orders, and that we need to, where possible, because it's not possible in every eventuality, but actually give President Trump's executive orders the permanence of law.
One of the issues that I have, because I have my little bullet point issues with things we've been working on, one of the things we have forgotten about in the middle of all the riots and all of the fraud and everything else, the piles and piles of driver's licenses that have been handed out to illegal aliens, not just in California, but also in your state. Hasn't there been a problem with that in your state as well?
Yeah, there's been a massive problem. Hang on, I can't hear you. Can you say what you just said, Tim?
Yeah.
Oh, I got you. Okay. All right. Way
Okay.
better. Sorry, we had some issues with our audio over here that I had to fix.
Fire.
Yes, we have lots of issues with illegal aliens getting driver's licenses, and it's not just North Carolina. It's obviously California, it's Illinois, it's New York, it's New Jersey, it's every single state that simply just wants to do its own thing and defy federal law, even when it ends up killing American citizens. This was, I think, most recently discovered in the state of North Carolina, that we've got serious problems with our state's commercial driver's licensing system, where we are not. And again, we've got a Democratic administration in North Carolina that's running the governor's office out there, and we are simply not enforcing federal law when it comes to English language proficiency, the ability to read road signs, the ability to actually interact with law enforcement in a productive and meaningful way, with people that actually speak English. It's crazy to me that we're even dealing with this, Tim. The potential of having illegal aliens who don't speak English behind the wheel of 80,000-pound 18-wheelers rolling down our highways. Those are missiles that unfortunately are crashing into American citizens and killing them. And it seems like we're seeing a new story of this like every 2 weeks somewhere across the country. It's absolutely ridiculous.
It's scary. Shelby, you have a question for the congressman? Because I know that you were a commercial truck driver at one point.
I do, for 9 years, Congressman.
Awesome.
Have you approached Secretary Duffy about this issue? And do you know if he's actually on this? Because we're seeing governors just fight back when he says, I'm going to defund this, or I'm going to, stop you from being able to give out these illegal driver's licenses. Especially the commercial ones. What is he planning? Have you spoken to him?
I've not spoken to him directly, but my team has been in contact with his team, and they are very much tracking this issue, I can tell you. And in all honesty,
tracking is one thing. Solving it and getting this taken care of is another.
He's actually leading on this issue, and look, I think everybody's got to understand kind of where things are, right? He's leaning forward, doing some things that have not been done before, which is the administration leaning forward and actually trying to withhold funds where there may or may not be a mechanism that can stand up in court for his ability to do that. He's doing that anyway. And so I would tell you that he is acting, but one of the reasons that we actually came out with our bill, which is called the Safe Drivers Act, is because, yes, there is already a law on the books that says that states have to enforce federal law. They have to provide English language proficiency testing before giving an initial commercial driver's license or during the renewal process. They've got to do that at both of those checkpoints. But there is no penalty if they don't. And that's where Safe Drivers actually comes in, the legislation that we put forward at the end of last year that actually allows the federal government to withhold Department of Transportation funds. And that is billions of dollars, by the way. This is absolutely going to get the state's attention. But just because you're not enforcing a law, doesn't mean that we can actually really do anything about it. And this is what we've learned since President Trump got into office the first go around, is that what we need to do with all of the laws that we're putting in place is we have to have real teeth. We have to have real mechanisms of accountability, because if we don't have that, Duffy can go out and do whatever he wants. And I think he's doing the right thing by withholding these funds. Certainly that's our legislative proposal, but a court can come in and say, you don't have the authority to do that. So he's working within the confines of what, he can probably get away with at this point. We've got to give him the ability to do that by law. And that's what Safe Drivers does.
And is that going to be in the reconciliation bill or looped in with the reconciliation bill, the cutting of those funds for the states that give out driver's licenses?
We are trying to do that, Tim. Like there's only a couple shots where we can actually get this in. Certainly, one of them is on the transportation bill and any appropriations that we've got there. Second one is absolutely reconciliation. We're going to try to get this in whatever vehicle we can possibly get it in, because this is common sense. I actually can't believe that we don't have Democratic co-sponsorship on this, but this is where the left has gone, unfortunately. They just don't want to play ball on even common sense issues.
I have to ask you a kind of a quasi-personal but easy question here. You
Yeah.
guys are going to get a foot of snow coming up this week. Do you just camp out in the in your office to make sure this vote goes through, or what?
Well, we go home on the weekends. That probably won't happen if this vote doesn't go through at the end of this week. And yes, the answer is we'll be camping out and hoping the lights and the heat don't turn off. But we're dealing with the same thing. Even if I go back home to Hickory, North Carolina, we're anticipating 7 inches of snow this weekend. And there's kind of an old saying that for every inch of snow is a day that the kids won't be in school, because we don't have any snowplows back in Hickory, North Carolina. So I think it's going to be somewhat of a catastrophe no matter where I'm located come Saturday and Sunday.
We have absolutely zero here in Fort Worth, Texas, and we're probably going to get 7 to 10 inches on Saturday. So.
It's going to be
We
wild.
got some in northern Florida.
Yeah, you guys got it too.
Pensacola, we got some snow in Pensacola again.
Yeah, I saw white snow on green grass down there at one of my friends' houses from some pictures on social media this weekend. Y'all are dealing with it too.
It's
Wow.
going to be wild, but no, I'd imagine that just adds another level to the stress of your job, because also when you have these reconciliation bills, anytime that there's an amendment when it's in committee, don't Democrats also get 5 minutes to just rant about it? So you have to sit there for 15 hours at a committee meeting before this gets out of committee to the floor.
Yeah, a lot of it's just babysitting Democrats, right? And some of their crazy concerns. And you can't, look, like everybody's got an opinion. Those opinions are valid. They're representing people that have different, positions than we do, certainly coming out of conservative districts. But some of it just seems like such a waste of time when it's so common sense. The priorities that we're trying to get across the finish line, very clearly the American people voted for this. They want these changes to happen, and yet the other side just stands in the way and obstructs the best that they possibly can. It's exhausting trying to sit through all of it sometimes, Tim. So that's where I say you're actually probably smarter than me doing what you're doing here, rather than actually serving up here in Washington. But we try to make a difference where we can.
I don't know if I know that the comms director I've become friends with at the Republican Study Committee. I've known her for a long time. Callie, I don't know if I told her this or not, but I've been asked to run 3 times for Congress. And I'm like, that sounds like the worst job ever. I love my neighborhoods. I love my towns. Absolutely not. So like, God bless you for doing it.
It's a great job. I want to be clear with people. Like, it's a great job. It is. Honestly, it's an incredible honor. It's a great responsibility. And you learn so much doing it. You get to see so much of the big picture where all the different pieces of the puzzle kind of get to fit together. But you also get to work together as a team to figure out how to lock in the wins that we're trying to achieve. All of the things that we campaigned on, that President Trump campaigned on in the 2024 election. And, as you always want it to go faster, but you realize based on the structure of the Constitution, that can't always happen, right? You've got to have consensus, and there's some mechanisms that we have, like reconciliation, that get around that consensus that allow us just to get that, 51%. But nonetheless, as far as Washington standards go, we've actually done quite a bit this last year, and we need to continue to build on that.
I agree. A lot of people don't realize how hard your job is. And when, it looks like you have off all the time, where they're like, oh, we're on recess and whatever, you go back to your district and you have to deal with constituent work and actually helping out individuals in your district. The job never ends. And because it's a 2-year term, it's always campaigning, always working, always serving your district and individuals. And probably one of the hardest jobs. I'm surprised you don't have gray hair yet, actually.
It's starting to come. You might not be able to tell because the camera's a little far away, but it's here. It's starting to show up. I mean, you see it when you see it in Pete Hegseth, right? When he became defense secretary. Now look at the Secretary of War a year later. He's got a lot more gray hair. Same thing happens to everybody up here because you got a lot of weight on your shoulders, right? Like, you're trying to genuinely make this country a better place. You cannot make everybody happy in that process, so you've got to deal with that along the way. And do the best that you possibly can do by your constituency. That's certainly my role as a representative of the 10th District of North Carolina. I don't care what people in California think. I don't care what people in Washington, D.C. think. I care about what people think, what they want executed up here policy-wise from the 10th District of North Carolina. That's it. But still, it's a difficult job balancing all of the different portions of the constituency that we have, trying to come to some sort of consensus about what they actually want, and back that up with data and back that up with real results.
We're getting this reconciliation done this time, right? No government shutdown this time. We're going to get it.
Yeah, I mean that's not a reconciliation process. I think that's we're making our way through the rest of the traditional appropriations process now. We got through a lot through what's called regular order, which is single issue funding bills. Right now we're in kind of minibus season, which none of us who are really true conservatives really like because it's kind of an amalgamation of a lot of different things into one. But unfortunately, we're just kind of behind the eight ball because of timing, because of honestly the Democratic shutdown. The Democrats did the very best that they could to derail President Trump's agenda and the agenda that we had here in Congress working alongside the administration on the priorities that we campaigned on. We're trying to get this last year wrapped up. If we can do that this week, we don't have a shutdown. And I think even if we don't really have a super meaningful shutdown. I think we've defanged much of what the Democrats, were trying to cause up here. Hopefully we can get it completely across the finish line and move into this next year clean.
Well, I will say before I let you go, because they're a sponsor and I have to be nice to them. And I like them. Kalshi, if I can pull it up, there we go. Kalshi is with you guys and says the predictive market right now says, source not shown. There we go.
There we go.
Only a 12% chance. So last time they had nailed it, and they had nailed that it was going to be a very long shutdown. The predictive markets are really, they're actually predictive. And so everybody has faith in you guys this time, and we're looking forward to it. And thanks for all you do. And thanks for, working to codify President Trump's executive orders as well.
Absolutely. We're not going to stop. And Tim, thanks for what you do, spreading the word out there. My best to everybody. Happy New Year. And y'all stay safe in all the snow.
Oh yeah, you too. I get yourself some like hand warmers and stuff when the power goes out in the Capitol, so you can get this vote done.
That's right. Hope you're all
gotta be able to hit that
out there in Texas.
Have a good one. Thanks for being here, Congressman Kerrigan from North Carolina's 10th. Let's get you guys lined up. There we go. Back to normal. There we go. A little slow today. I like that guy. I liked Congressman. We need younger people in Congress who actually understand how technology and things work and how the world works. And anytime I see somebody below 40 in Congress, I'm like, yes, please, let's.
I want to ask you something, Tim. A few months ago, Speaker Johnson announced that he was going to, in the month of January, get at least another 150 EOs codified. Why did he not do it in November or December or
there's a lot of
why did he?
There are a lot of factors and it's like herding cats in Congress. It's like he's been very, very ambitious with what he's working with, and I think he's done a really good job with what he can do. But it's like herding cats. Wouldn't you agree, Andrew, on this one?
Yeah, the majority is very thin in the House of Representatives. And quite frankly, it's remarkable he's managed to accomplish what he has managed to accomplish, because you have to get I think it's literally one vote now. And, someone gets sick, someone dies. We would not have got, pardon?
Somebody gets stuck in the snow.
Yeah, stuff happens. And here's a good example. We would not have gotten the One Big Beautiful Bill enacted if 3 Democrats hadn't died. They could have stopped it if not for that. The reason that was enacted was only because there were 3 empty Democratic seats at the time. My congressman, Jerry Connolly, my late congressman, he's no longer my congressman, he passed away. Obviously passed away, and that provided the margin needed.
It is very slim, and I give him all the credit in the world for when you have that slim of a margin, one person realizes how powerful they are. And it could be like a rando that has never done anything, who's been sitting around, not really doing a good job for their district for a long time or whatever. Somebody who doesn't get along with anybody else in the building, all of a sudden decides they are like, no, I want to get, my elementary school named after my grandmother or something, my post office named after my grandmother or something like that.
Yeah, politics is inherently a team sport.
Mm-hmm. So it gets frustrating. It's frustrating to watch, but he's done the best he can with what he's got. I think he's like Andrew said, I think he's done better than what he could do.
He's exceeded my expectations. Let me put it that way.
Yep. So
there's a few of them that have for me that I'm really looking, at closely. It's especially here in Florida. We've got some problems in not only Miami, but Tampa, Jacksonville. Gainesville's always been a hot mess, but they got some people coming up that I'm looking closely at that I hope are going to make that power move on our side and get some of that straightened out. But we'll see. I don't even want to name names because I hate saying that, and then I get all disappointed, and then I just want to talk ugly. So I'm not going to do that.
I'm gonna let you guys go for a little bit. I will bring you back in
Oh.
a little bit. I'm gonna bring in now Congresswoman Stephanie Bice, who we've got. My little switches are working very, very slowly here today. There we go. Congresswoman Bice from Oklahoma's 5th. Let's talk about the real issue that both you and I are about to face here. Snow. How bad is it going to be in Oklahoma's 5th?
I am afraid it's going to be pretty bad. I mean, the latest projections are up to a foot of snow in the Oklahoma City metro area. And look, Oklahoma can deal with snow, but a foot of snow is a little much. And it kind of reminds me of the 2009 Christmas Eve snowstorm that hit Oklahoma City that paralyzed the city for days. I'm kind of concerned that we're going to see something similar to that starting on Friday.
And we were just talking about how slim the margins are in Congress to be able to get this reconciliation bill passed. Do you just you get a sleeping bag and hang out under your desk? Like what happens in a situation like this?
Well, look, I know you've been talking a little bit about the appropriations process. And as an appropriator, I'm excited to finally get our 12 appropriations bills, all 12 of them, across the finish line to the Senate and then to the president's desk. That being said, we're voting on them tomorrow. So hopefully many of us will be able to get out of town. But if I have to stay to make sure that we properly fund the government with American First priorities in the packages and ensuring that we are rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse, then I'll stick around.
Yeah. I hope that you can get that done. This is okay. So I have the notes on you here that the More Paid Leave for More Americans Act is your big advocacy here. Can you tell people what that's about and how that helps out everyday Americans?
Sure. So first, I think it's important to note that we are looking at Reconciliation 2.0, sort of an addendum to the Working Families Tax Cut, formerly known as the Big Beautiful Bill. And the Reconciliation 2.0 is going to focus on a lot of areas that Americans are concerned about right now. And one of those is, sort of tacking on to the cost of living discussion, but that is paid family leave. And the United States is one of 7 developed nations that doesn't have some sort of paid leave policy. And what we've created is what I think is a reasonable, conservative approach to paid leave. There's only about a dozen states that are currently offering some sort of leave opportunity for new parents, whether it's birth of a child or adoption. And so what we're doing is we're saying, states, we're going to incentivize you through a grant program, a competitive grant program, to come up with your own paid family leave program. It is not going to be funded by the federal government. It is not a mandate. But we recognize that families are struggling and that we want to give new families, new parents, the ability to stay home with a new baby, to bond with that child, but not have to stress and worry about paying the bills. And so this is an opportunity for us to continue to lift up the family. Look, Republicans are very much about pro-family, and this is another, I think, sort of feather in the cap to show that we're doing what we can to help each and every American family. And by the way, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't give the Vice President and Second Lady of the United States, SLOTUS, as they say, a shout out as they announced yesterday that they are excited to welcome their 4th child later this year.
That's going to be fun to watch in the White House as that happens.
Yeah.
I just something that would have never happened with Kamala and Doug. Sorry, I had to say that. But
I agree. I don't think we would have wanted it to either, right?
No. And also, like, I love it when we have good, smart conservatives and good conservatives in power that are making babies. I guess that's the way to say it. Like, that's what we need. We have to have more. We need to have a bigger population. Elon Musk talks about this all the time of really good based conservatives and educated people. And
look, I mean, if you look at the Democrats right now, I think they're going to starve themselves out because they're not having children, frankly. And you see so many conservative families that are growing, and it's really been incredible to me. I'm the mother. I'm blessed to, my husband and I have 2 amazing daughters. And, you know, my daughters recognize the importance of family, and they are beginning to see their friends talk about conservative values. And they are also recognizing that having a family is a great thing. You know, you hear from the left that children, you know, are impeding my career, or they're, you know, they're not interested in having kids. They want to be the, you know, single cat lady, if you will.
Yeah.
Look, families are an amazing blessing. And we see so many young people not only going to church now, but beginning to plan for large families. And I think it's a great thing.
I don't think people realize, you know, it's the term, by the way, the leftist term, and God forbid I have to know this stuff. It's called DINK, dual income, no kids,
Oh,
married
yes. Yeah.
couples and or partners or whatever they like to call themselves on that side, that like to flaunt their money around. But like, there's nothing better than having a family and having a unit around you rather than just spending money on things. I say
That's
this as
exactly
somebody
right.
with a collection of whiskey and toys in my house.
Hey, you
Um,
can do both. I mean, you
yeah.
know, you may have to wait a little while to collect those things, but my husband also may or may not have a collection of fine bourbon that he has collected over
Oh, we need
time
to talk.
too. But
We need to talk. You're only up the street from me a little bit, so we can get together and have that conversation one day. One of the other big aspects of this reconciliation bill that I wanted to cover with you, and what will help us give more to families in America and American families, the making sure that funding that goes to states only goes for American citizens, not counting the heads of illegals. That's a big deal.
yeah, absolutely. When you have the prior administration, you know, letting in tens of millions of illegals into the country, it puts a strain on the system, frankly. And you're seeing that with the education system, you're seeing that with the healthcare system, you're seeing that with housing. And, you know, that's why I think the president has been so focused on, first of all, securing the southern border. He has done a tremendous job of stemming the flow. I mean, you are talking about 15,000 people a day that were coming across our southern border under the Biden administration. That is virtually ceased completely.
Yeah.
And now you have to address the real concerns that the American people have, and that is the safety and security of this country. We know, Tim, for a fact that known or suspected terrorists have come into the country through the southern border. And trying to find individuals that have want to do this country harm and removing them is a priority. And that is something that the president will continue to fight for. And it does have economic impact. We need to make sure that we are taking care of our own. And that doesn't mean that we aren't generous people. It means that we don't have the resources to spread, you know, across all of these individuals. We've got to really make sure that we're spending our dollars wisely. And so that's what we're seeing out of the administration currently.
One of the things that you have in Oklahoma that makes your state very, very unique are the Native American and indigenous populations. And I'm sure you get to interact with them pretty regularly.
I do.
They have to be incredibly insulted by what Joe Biden did with these wide open borders, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all incensed. You know, it's not just a specific segment of Oklahoma. Everybody is frustrated because you've seen so many people, you know, sort of taking advantage of the system. I will tell you, closer to your neck of the woods, down near the southern border, I heard from landowners when I did a visit down to the border who were so angry because they own land, they own livestock, and they were losing cattle, losing, you know, other farm animals, having their property stolen because people were coming across the border illegally and destroying property. And nobody was doing anything about it. And I filed legislation to try to help address that situation, but it becomes a problem for everyone. And I think that we, you know, need to continue to try to find ways to address the number of people that are here. We're seeing the president do that now, and he'll continue.
Yeah. No, it's crazy. I was able to go down and actually tour the border, and took what Border Patrol called the riverboat cruise because of how common it is now on the Rio Grande, thanks to President Trump's policies. But it was incredible to see the actual business. When you would look at the other side, the Mexican side of the border, there were mansions with docks where, and I'm sure you've seen this yourself. I don't think people realize that it was such a business and such a big business for these cartels that they literally just set up like these fortified mansions and would just ship people back and forth.
Tim, I want to tell your viewers and listeners a story about my experience when I visited the southern border a couple of years ago. I've been twice, and the first time I went down with Representative Tony Gonzalez, we encountered a group of individuals crossing into the country, And one of them was a 14-year-old girl from Honduras. She was alone. She was with a group of people, but had traveled by herself. Now, you cannot tell me that she was not trafficked there by coyotes through Honduras into Mexico and up to the southern border. And she had her paperwork in a plastic bag, inside her shorts to be able to show Border Patrol when she arrived. And I spoke with her. She actually spoke some English and said that she was trying to get to Tennessee because she had been there prior living with an aunt. But that's part of the thing that I think gets missed or lost in this whole conversation is that these coyotes were being paid tens of thousands of dollars to traffic young people, young girls to our southern border. And heaven knows what happened to those young girls on that trek. It is just heartbreaking to see this. And that's another reason why we need to address this issue. And I'm glad President Trump has taken action.
Yeah. Congresswoman Bice, I know you're running out of time here. We're gonna codify President Trump's executive orders this time, right? We're gonna get some through.
Yeah, I'm the vice chair of the Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development Appropriations Subcommittee. And I spoke today with conference talking about some of the provisions that are going to be in this appropriations bill that we're putting forward that are codifying some of Trump's executive orders, but also codifying some of the DOGE actions that were taken. For example, we've seen a 24% reduction in HUD employees. Jobs still getting done, but we didn't need all those folks. 5% reduction in Department of Transportation employees. We are rolling back the almost $1 billion that was appropriated for California high-speed rail that has never gone anywhere.
Yeah.
We're rolling back almost $1 billion in Infrastructure and Investment Jobs Act funding that went for EV charging stations. I think that should go to actual, transportation infrastructure like roads and bridges. So I'm excited for the codification of some of the executive orders and these DOGE cuts because it's good for America.
Yeah, I agree with you. And we're gonna get it done this time. I just showed my fund sponsor, Kalshi, the predictive markets. They believe in you as well. Only a 12% chance of a shutdown. So everybody knows that you're gonna get it done this time. I am going to pray for you so that you don't freeze in the Capitol and that you guys have power while all the snow is falling. Are you in the Capitol now, or are you back home?
I am in my office in Rayburn 2402 currently.
Okay, well,
I hope, we're supposed to vote on the appropriations package tomorrow. My bigger concern, we do have votes on Friday morning, is actually getting out of DC and getting to Oklahoma, because my understanding is that the storm is supposed to hit Oklahoma City, early afternoon on Friday. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed. I'm not as worried about getting out of here. I'm really worried about getting home.
You're not getting home. I've been, because look, as
Jim,
a
have some
panic,
optimism.
I'm
you
sorry.
You should ask your predictive market thing if I'm going to get home on Friday night.
I am just looking at the snow that's going to hit us on Saturday here, and I'm like, nope, we're not.
Is it snow or is it ice? Because it looks like it could be ice.
Worse, even worse. Great.
Right.
Yeah, no, and I have only been a homeowner for 2 months, so I'm like, going out and like just warming up the pipes myself, like grabbing my little faucets outside. Thank you, Congresswoman Bice, and safe travels this weekend, and thanks for all you do.
Thanks so much, Tim. Have a great day.
See ya.
Bye now.
Oh my gosh, what a time. This weekend is going to be a little freezing. We got a couple of minutes before Vice Chair Ben Klein comes in. Let me just bring back in real quick here, Shell and Andrew, just for a second. Shell, you guys had snow in northern Florida?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, it was a dusting, but it was here. It wasn't quite as much as last year, but I don't think it's over yet, Tim. So we'll just have to watch and see.
That is, I'm not looking forward to the snow that's coming. What are you getting in Virginia, Andrew? You guys getting a pound?
Up to 16 inches.
Yikes! Not looking forward to that. Because we don't have anything here. I should have bought a snow shovel, but I would only use it one time. So I'm just going to sit here and freeze and have a nice time by myself in the house for a few days. Read some books, organize some things, do some cleaning. That's going to be my entire weekend. So
I looked it up during the break, Tim.
Yeah.
And Stalin killed 40 people at that bank robbery.
Wow, that's wild.
So I was right. So you should look into it. A 1907 Tiflis bank robbery.
All right, I will do my. This is Andrew is my I will call him my nerdy friend. He's a very very smart guy when it comes to this stuff.
Thank
All
you.
right, I'm gonna let you guys go. I'm gonna do the rest of this. We got about an hour left today. I'm gonna hang out with the great congressman of the Republican Study Committee. But I want to thank you guys for being here. Shell, make sure people go see Shell Shocked regularly, and then Andrew Follett. Where can they follow you?
Andrew C. Follett on Twitter.
All right, guys. I will talk to you both soon. See ya.
Thank you, Tim.
Bye. And just on time, Vice Chair of the Republican Study Committee, Congressman Ben Cline. When I can hit the button. Sometimes I know how to hit these buttons. Sometimes I don't. How you doing, Congressman?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. We are Reconciliation 2.0. It's going to be America First. We're going to get rid of piles of waste, fraud, and abuse, hopefully. How hard has this bill been to start organizing and putting together this time?
You know, it really hasn't been hard. When you listen to the members of our RSC, they come from all across the country, all different opinions about what challenges we need to tackle, but they have great solutions. And if you listen to the members and listen to the people, the answers really present themselves. The affordability crisis that got handed to us by the last administration really is what folks are worried about right now. And we need to tackle this unaffordability crisis in housing, in healthcare, in energy, and the solutions are there. We just need to get them put into a position where it gets universal support among our conference. And unfortunately, with a 1-vote margin, that's what you have to have, is every member marching in the same direction. And RSC has teed that up for success, and I'm optimistic about how we're going to get across the finish line this year.
How many members do you currently have in the Republican Study Committee? It's a large amount.
It is. It's the largest caucus in the Republican Conference, and the Republican Conference, as you know, is about 220, but we have about 190 members of the conference who are in RSC. It is the conservative conscience of the conference. That's a tongue twister, but it is the crucible through which we can take members from who are all conservative, but who come from across the spectrum and work out our policies so that they come forward and can be presented in the most populous way, in the way that's most popular among the conference and that speaks to the needs of the people.
And your work is critical in that committee because, again, it's making sure that you get all the input and everybody's on the same page. Because when you have that 1-seat majority, everybody has to be together because you don't need Democrats to pass this bill. That's why the Republican Study Committee and your work is so important right now.
Well, that's right. And our chairman has done a great job of listening, bringing in members, hearing from them. Our speaker does the same thing. To get these bills across the finish line, you've got to be able to listen to all points of view from across the spectrum of the conference and try and massage concerns so that they can support the legislative initiative going forward, but also get their concerns addressed.
It's a lot of, it's interesting. People might think that your job is easy. Like I know people are like, oh, why can't Mike Johnson get more done? These aren't just normal people who are members of Congress. They're exceptional representatives of their districts. They all are very opinionated. They all have a little bit of an ego. I have a lot of an ego, so I understand that. And everybody has to be happy in order to be on the same page to move forward for our country. And they have to be happy, not just for themselves, but for their entire district. And they know what they're there to do, especially Republicans know what they're there to do. It's to represent their district. It is an incredibly complex job, even though people just think, oh, why can't you just show up and vote, right?
That's absolutely true. People say, well, do you take your own views to Washington or do you take the views of the people and vote that way? And it's really a combination of the two. You have your own principles that you carry with you to Washington, and those drive your decision making, but you also hear from your constituents. You seek out your constituents to hear from them about the issues that are important to them, and then you try and prioritize those issues while you're in Washington. And I tell you what, to a member, each of us considers ourselves to be good listeners and good representatives of the opinions of a majority of the people in their district because they were voted in with a majority of the votes. So you have to convince members who are of a particular viewpoint that their view may not be the only view, their view may not be the right view, and that they have to come off of that viewpoint in order to get a bigger principled bill forward. And that is always a challenge. But the speaker is the pro at this. He definitely knows how to herd the cats of the Republican conference. You know, we do value individualism, value that independent spirit. The Democrats are like the Borg from, you know, the old Star Trek.
I can go Star Trek all day long.
Assimilate, you either assimilate or die is essentially the attitude of the Borg. And that's kind of the way that the Democrats operate. Their way is the only way. And so we are, it's more challenging for us to get that 218 to pass legislation.
By the way, don't bother checking out that new Starfleet Academy show. It's
I'll take your advice.
Really quickly here, and we'll get back to the reconciliation bill. I can't help but mention that you are Virginia's 6th congressional district, a state that once I think a lot of people in America need to wake up, especially conservatives, Republicans, anyone who isn't a radical, and see what's happening with your new governor immediately. The laws that they're trying to pass and how like it should raise eyebrows for more than just people who pay attention to politics, right? I mean, when you're seeing like hand counting be eliminated and mandatory minimums for crimes being eliminated, for horrible crimes being eliminated, are people going to finally wake up? Like, what's it going to take for people to wake up?
Well, Virginia does have a tradition of leading nationally, and in the past, Virginia has been a champion for free enterprise, a champion for business growth. Our last governor, Glenn Youngkin, did a fantastic job of drawing businesses to the Commonwealth, and in fact, reversed outward migration from Virginia. We had terrible governors, Ralph Northam, Terry McAuliffe, who really adopted policies that drove away people and businesses and ideas from Virginia. But Glenn Youngkin has reversed that. And it's going to be up to Governor Spanberger to decide whether she wants to continue that great record of success of Glenn Youngkin or take a trip back down the path of previous governors. You know, there's a lot of talk in the legislature about these extreme ideas. They're riding ahead of steam. The House got, the Republicans got reduced down to 38 Republicans out of 100. And the Democrats think that they have now have the license to push these radical policies, undo our right to work laws, put in more of these voter laws that are going to encourage problematic voting in Virginia. You know, we have one of the longest early voting periods, ballot harvesting, the kinds of things that really create doubt in the minds of the voters about the security of our system. We have to push back on that. We have to make sure that the voters speak out against these kinds of policies. And hopefully we can get through this legislative session with minimal damage to the Commonwealth. The Senate only has a 1-seat Democrat majority. So there is the possibility that a lot of it can be stopped if we can get some reasonable minds in the Democrat-led Senate to step up and stand up for the Virginia traditions that have made it such a successful state.
Yeah. One of the things that people talk about, especially with all of the tech companies that moved to Virginia, is affordability of housing in your state. Northern Virginia has turned into Silicon Valley East for better or for worse. I mean, it's great that they come out here, but you know, if they could vote a little differently in those areas, it'd be nice instead of bringing San Francisco voting with them. How does this bill, I say all that to get around to this, how does reconciliation this time help affordable housing, help Americans better afford being even first-time homeowners?
Well, if you talk to any home builder, they're going to tell you why housing has become so expensive. It's because it costs so much to build a new house. And it's the affordability, the regulatory burdens that are put on by federal, state, and local governments onto the housing industry really make it so pricey to build that when you finally do build and you want to sell it, you have to price it at an amount that's not really affordable for a lot of Americans, a lot of Virginians. And so we do need help at the local level. We do need help at the state level. But at the federal level, we can look at our availability of housing stock. We can incentivize through our tax code ways that to turn over houses a little bit more rapidly so that there's a greater stock. If you waive capital gains taxes for the sale of a home to a first-time home buyer, that kind of incentive is going to help people to want to sell their homes a little bit more easily and actually create that stock that's going to help people afford housing.
Which is a big deal. I don't think, what is it? The average first-time home owner now is 40 years old or above, I think is the new statistic that came out, which is crazy because the American dream is, of course, to have your house and, 2 kids. Well, it used to be house, 2 kids, and, a decent paying job. And now who knows what the left has defined that as, could be any matter of strange furry things. When, I'm looking at this, I'm looking at what the bill corrects for. It is wild to me that the federal government was sending money and is sending money until we fix it for funding of programs based on headcount rather than just Americans. And sending just that to me seems like it would be something that would encourage fraud when you're sending just gobs of money at a blue state that might even be able to cook the books a little bit with all of these illegals that are there. We're correcting for that, right?
Yeah, the perverse incentives that have been created by past administrations and past Democrat-led Congresses and encourage illegal immigration, ship illegal immigrants to states that have very liberal welfare policies that supplement or duplicate welfare policies for illegal immigrants. California famously provides health insurance for illegals. These kinds of things not only attract illegals to those states, but then the incentives actually are to keep the illegals there because that helps to offset net migration out and keep their, for redistricting purposes, keep their numbers up. Yeah. And so it is as I say, a perverse incentives that exist that we have to remove from the code so that these states have an incentive to actually crack down on fraud, avoid these type of open-ended programs, and target them towards U.S. citizens rather than illegal immigrants. I mean,
we're seeing, before all the riots broke out to protect illegal aliens in Minneapolis, $9 billion of fraud just in daycare centers in Minnesota. This is, and that's just one small region. When you're, as vice chair of the Republican Study Committee, when you're in the office and you're talking with all the members and you're having these regular conversations, has there been anything that has shocked you that like a member from a different state has come in and been like, hey, and by the way, this is happening here and we have to do something about it? Have you been like, oh my gosh, like I thought it was bad and then this came up and it's even worse than I thought?
Yeah, the more you hear about the programs that are created at the federal level by Democrat administrations that micromanage and are administered by the federal bureaucrats, and how long they have built up these programs with minimal oversight, minimal accountability. The tax dollars flow into these programs, and there's just no follow-up by these agencies to confirm that the tax dollars go to the programs they're intended to go to and actually benefit Americans. And Congress has, for the 435 of us, there's limited bandwidth to go all over the country to ensure that every housing program in every locality is held accountable and does the appropriate job with the federal tax dollars that it receives. And so that's why we need more responsibility handed off from the federal government to the states and less responsibility in the hands of bureaucrats in Washington who have never been to my district, never been across the country to see exactly what the needs are. That's why the education department has become such a problem, is because the regulations that are being put forward to educate our children by bureaucrats in Washington take power and responsibility away from parents, away from local communities, and instead put it in the hand of bureaucrats and other interest groups that are trying to dictate how the kids learn and indoctrinate the kids in a way that's contrary to what the parents want in the community. So decreasing responsibility in Washington, increasing responsibility at the state and local level and with parents and private sector is the way that the RSC is trying to go with Reconciliation 2.0.
And that's, that's something, another good example of that is HUD, Housing and Urban Development. Why do we need bureaucrats in DC when this is on a local level? And HUD has been cut already by 24%. Still seems to be operating like normal. I'm sure many more federal government jobs could be slashed. And when you take a look at the Department of Education, one of the biggest bloated amounts of money that I see there, I think the average salary was $137,000 the last time I checked. That's an incredible job for sitting around at a desk pushing paper.
Yeah, that's not the average salary in my district. Folks in my district work hard, and they want schools that are locally administered and held accountable. Housing stock, one of the problems with the housing issue is that there is this federal housing stock, public housing, that has to be managed by the federal government. And instead of taking tax dollars and helping people find housing, private housing for themselves, if they can't afford it, the vouchers should be able to be used by people to afford housing in the private sector rather than build competing government stock of housing. So transitioning over to a more privately administered voucher program is always going to be a better solution. That's what we need to do with the education dollars. So make sure that the education dollars flow to the parents to be able to decide the education that's right for their kids. The health care system, rather than create these Obamacare subsidies that don't even find their way to taxpayers, they go straight from the pockets of taxpayers to the federal government and then to the insurance companies and the CEOs, and Lord knows they make enough. So we want the tax dollars to go back to the taxpayer, and so the taxpayer can pick the health insurance that's right for them, create more options, create more opportunities for families to get the right fit for health insurance. These types of voucherization programs are the better solution than federal government run programs.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm looking forward to this. It's going to get done this week, right?
We are confident that we are going to roll out this 2.0 reconciliation plan. It's going to be met with a lot of near universal support. If there are some tweaks we have to make along the way as the legislation moves through the Congress, that's part of the process. And we're looking forward to getting this done and continuing to deliver on the heels of Reconciliation 1.0 last year, which is about to put a lot of money back into the pockets of taxpayers. Reconciliation 2.0, which is going to continue to remove the federal government regulations and rules and burdensome mandates from the programs that are trying to benefit the people.
Now, this is you're not too far of a drive from Washington, D.C. In your district.
True.
But the snow coming up, and I've been asking everybody this, especially, I had a Congresswoman from Oklahoma on just a second ago, but are you just going to camp out in your office to make sure this gets done? Because going home you got a little bit of mountains up there where you are, right?
We've got the beautiful Blue Ridge Mountains, the Shenandoah Valley. The snow is headed our way, and we know what to do when snow hits. We know how to get around in the snow. We've got a lot of farmers, a lot of hard workers, but my kids are anxious to go sledding. And so we've got a big hill right behind our house, and they're ready, and I'm ready to be home with them.
I forget that the East Coast and Virginia and the states around there actually know how to handle us, not Washington D.C., but you guys actually know what to do out there, and you have snowplows, unlike us out here in Texas. So
yeah.
A
lot of people have plows in their garages. They just hook up to the front of their trucks and help out a friend and help out a neighbor.
Well, if they could send some this way on Saturday, it'd be really great. Fort Worth. Congressman and Vice Chair of the Republican Study Committee, Congressman Klein, thanks for being here with us today, and thanks for all your hard work on this bill.
Thank you. Great to be with you.
See ya. I need to grab some water for a second. There we go. See, when you do these lives for 3 hours on radio, you get commercial breaks. When you do it on the internet, it just goes. So thank you guys for joining us so far. We've got some great congressmen coming up. It's been a great conversation so far. I need to go to the comments. Good morning, Drax. The only reason that Jim Bob can watch today is that he's homesick, and you lost your voice. Well, I was about to lose my my voice right there as well. And I want to thank again Shell and Andrew Follett for hanging out for a little bit today. Oh, here we go. And Joe, who is here in Texas, says the electric company has been at his house trimming trees for 2 days, getting ready for the ice in Texas. Yeah, it is going to get pretty nasty here in Texas, and kind of across it's kind of an angle around the southern part of America where we're all going to be getting a pile of snow this weekend. Make sure that you have insulated your pipes outside and drained your outdoor spigots, your water spigots for this, because it is going to get nasty and pipes are going to burst. And I was here a couple of years ago when I first moved to Texas, when we had, I believe it was 121 hours under freezing and power was out everywhere and everyone's pools were cracking. And at the time I lived in an apartment building and not in a house. And all of the pipes in the apartment building were bursting. All of the fire. Nope, zoomed in on myself. I don't know how I did that. This is when it falls apart. Now there we go. I forget that my AI camera takes hand signals. But all of the fire sprinkler systems that have to keep water in them because the power went out in the building froze and burst in the walls, and so everyone's apartments were flooding universally in this building. And so I learned to never again live in an apartment building in Texas when it comes to freezing. So there we go. Actually, coming up next in about 2 minutes, we've got Congressman Randy Weber from Texas 14th, and he will talk about that and everything energy. He is vice chair of the RSC's Energy Task Force, and he's going to be talking about how the reconciliation bill will actually help people with energy costs on top of everything else that's coming through. The bill, again, a lot of great things that come through it. I want to actually pull up here a tweet from Eric Darty. I never know how to pronounce that last name. Darty. I think people have different pronunciations of it. But here's just a really, really good summary of what House Republicans are doing and what the Republican Study Committee is helping to do here. Again, the second MAGA reconciliation bill, they only need 51 votes in the Senate. They only need to use the Republican votes that they have currently in the House to pass this. It bans illegals from getting a dime of taxpayer welfare. That is a big, big deal that saves our country billions of dollars. Codifies many more of Trump's executive orders. It eliminates over $1.6 trillion in waste, fraud, and abuse from government programs, as we've seen time and time again. There's just money flying everywhere throughout this country, and not much regulation of it. The federal government likes to hand out money, but not care where it goes. And we see that just with $9 billion in Somali daycares in one state, just one state. And Minnesota is not that big of a state. Size-wise, yeah, but population, no. So if $9 billion is going to Somali fraud in daycares in just that state, you can imagine the amount of fraud, waste, and abuse that is around this country. 1.6 trillion. This bill helps to eliminate. Then also it ensures only citizens count for purposes of allocating funding to states. Now, I got to tell you, it is wild to me that not only can congressional districts be formed and determined by illegal alien presence, but that money then, taxpayer money, gets sent and allocated to states based on illegal alien presence and not just Americans. Our taxpayer money should go to us, American citizens, not illegals, especially when it comes to healthcare and housing and all of the tax breaks that non-citizens are getting and housing breaks that non-citizens are getting. That should not be happening. And then also it contains affordability measures for housing and healthcare, again, broken down very, very well. If you did not see the interview with Congressman Rich McCormick earlier, he broke it down perfectly, absolutely perfectly. What's going on with the pharmaceutical industry and how many hands are in your prescription drugs, actually in your wallet while you're trying to get your prescription drugs, because there are so many different organizations that are involved. It's not just pharmacist, doctor, patient. There's all these other organizations that drive costs up that don't need to be there. I actually have a neat graphic here let me see if I can get it pulled up for you from the RSC, which is sent over to me. And if I can get this to happen, this is the magic of lives. Well, I'll pull it up in a bit because we've got Congressman Weber with us. Let me shrink that. And I'll bring up one of my favorite congressmen ever. The same size as me, Congressman Randy Weber from Texas. How you doing, sir?
Well, I'm doing super. Is this the Tim Young?
Yeah, listen, I remember you. I met you first when you were at my landlord Bill's place when I used to live there, helping him fix the electricity.
Oh my gosh, so you do have a good memory. That's a good thing for us to know about electricity because most of these Democrats are revolting.
It is. Let me tell you something. The fact that I'm like, so my notes, right? Because I'm working with the RSC today to help you guys out, the Republican Study Committee. Always happy to help out good people in Congress. And it was just funny to me because it said, "Oh, he's big on energy." I'm like, no kidding. He was in my house at the time, DC, fixing my power. This guy, like, you understand what it takes to actually get things done. You're not one of these big corporate guys. You're not a big money guy. You're a simple human being who wanted to represent your district. You went to Congress and you've been doing a great job for years.
Well, absolutely, Tim. Thank you for recognizing that. And you know this. I owned my own. I think you do, maybe. I owned my own air conditioning company for 35 years. I built it from the ground up. And so, I was a one-man show. And then, word got around. We put out flyers and stuff. Then I hired another guy. So we never had more than about 12 of us. But nothing like being a small business owner.
I got to tell you, when I talk to college groups and they're like, "Oh, what should we do to be like an influencer or whatever, like you do?" I go, "You shouldn't go to college. You should go get your certificate in HVAC, and you'll be a millionaire by the time that I was like $200,000 in debt with college."
Absolutely, you betcha. You betcha. Well, I tell the story about the gal that said, she didn't want to have to marry her husband for his money, but it was the only way she could get it. so you got to watch those guys and gals.
Well, let's get down to business, Congressman. Let me tell you. So you're vice chair of the RSC's Energy Task Force. You really understand what's going on there. This reconciliation bill, we're actually going to try, and you will accomplish, helping Americans have more affordable housing and everything else and curb inflation by cutting back these energy prices, right?
Yeah, that's exactly correct. Of course, President Trump's only been in office a year this time, and you're already seeing great strides being made exactly in that affordable housing, affordable energy, all across. I don't know how much you know about my district, Tim, but we're the Gulf Coast of Texas. We have 7 ports. We have more than any other member of Congress. Some have 4. We have 7. We produce 65% of the nation's jet fuel, 80% of the nation's military-grade fuel, and 60% of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve is in our district. So for us, energy is a big deal. What President Trump is doing is a big deal. Americans, I have to believe, are watching this and they're saying, thank God there's a new sheriff in town.
I don't know where prices would go at this point, or where they would be if we had a Kamala Harris with Doug as a first man White House. It'd be a mess.
Well, as you know, the governor of Minnesota is being investigated now by the FBI and the feds, and I hope they get him put under the jailhouse for all the fraud. Not just him, but the people in Minnesota, especially the Somalis, those who were opening up child care centers, and they never had a child in it that they could care for, but they got millions of your tax dollars, your and my money.
And one of the problems and one of the things that this reconciliation bill helps fix is not just throwing money at states, because if you're counting illegal heads to then allocate money to a state, places like Minnesota are going to cash in, and there's going to be extra money out there that would not even be intended from the get-go to go to American citizens.
That's exactly right. And there's also another bill, not necessarily a reconciliation bill. There's been a bill filed, I forget who was talking about it the other day, and I think RSC, that people who are on Social Security or getting Medicare rather, they cannot send that money overseas. If they're getting Medicare and they're sending a lot of money to some of these countries, as you know, that hate us and don't respect us, if they're taking Medicare, if they're taking payments from the federal government, welfare payments or whatever, and sending it overseas, that's got to stop. You need to exist on your own, not getting extra money from the federal government to send to your friends back home.
Well, that's what's incredible to me when you see these kind of like welfare queen videos and things that go viral on the internet, and you're like, wait, you got a better cell phone than me. How are you on welfare and you got a $1,400 cell phone? Not just sending it overseas. Like if you got the money to do that, then there's something very wrong with how much money that you're getting from our federal government and taxpayers.
Well, and that's exactly the point here. And it's never, you know, I got involved in Republican Party politics, Tim, in 1983 when Ronald Reagan ran for re-election. I became, in Pearland, Texas, I became a precinct chair, election clerk, election judge. My air conditioning company gave me the ability to work the polls during elections and then eventually to hold voting, you know, the early voting for 2 weeks back then where people would come in and sign the book, and I knew a lot of people in Pearland. But all that to say, I have watched this country since 1983, and back then, Tim, we had a saying, waste, fraud, and abuse. And we're finally doing something about it under President Trump. Thank God for Donald J. Trump.
Yeah, and it's wild the screams from the left as you guys cut fraud, waste, and abuse out. You would think that you were doing something bad, but you're just kind of just cutting into somebody and their friends' paychecks is what's happening with their fraudulent businesses.
Oh, you know what? Business for us is what it's all about. As I said, I owned that air conditioning company for 35 years, built it from the ground up. My beautiful bride, by the way, of 49 years. Next year will be our 50th wedding anniversary, or this year, August coming up. Thank you. She hadn't killed me yet, and I can prove it. But anyway, she was a school teacher for 27 years. She taught fourth grade. My favorite fourth grade teacher, by the way. And and I tell people, I said, you know, fourth grade was 2 of the best years of my life. But anyway, so when you're a couple like that, where you got a family and she's a working gal and I'm a working man, you know what it means to use your money wisely and not be taken advantage of. What's happening under a president, I call him President Obama, and then Biden, I call him President O-Biden because I think he was Obama's third term. What's happening under there was money being given away and waste, fraud, and abuse was running rampant. And thank God, once again, for Donald J. Trump, because new sheriff in town, we're here to fix it. Republicans are on that track. And guess what? Our friends across the aisle, they hate it. Can you believe it?
Which means you're doing the right thing. Hey, one of the fun things about these RSC lives that I get to do is I get to bring in multiple you fellows at once, these good members of Congress. And I got with us, too, to kind of join a panel here. I don't think this ever happens anywhere else, by the way, having multiple members of Congress at once.
Well, I want to know who's on the panel with me.
Well, you got Congressman Burleson from Missouri 7th District. Good one.
Hey,
very, very good. Hey, what's going on?
Doing well. Glad to be on.
Yeah, you betcha. Me too.
I mean, look, Congressman Weber was just talking about, how we're going to cut energy costs, how we're going to cut fraud, waste, and abuse out of the government. One of your specialties, Congressman Burleson, is healthcare. What is this reconciliation bill going to do to help kind of clean up the healthcare situation and all the money that is flying left and right and probably shouldn't be from our taxpayers?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. We did a little bit of waste, fraud, and abuse within the Reconciliation 1.0 by putting work requirements into some of these systems. But there's so much more we can do. And I think what we're seeing in Minnesota and some of these other blue states is demonstrating that we have just, touched the top of the iceberg. And so we have got to go deeper. There's a lot of savings that we need to identify. The problem is obviously Democrats, but also some Republicans. Unfortunately, we have these votes, very common sense votes, like, for example, when Doge and Elon Musk audited the National Endowment for Democracy and said that this was a corrupt organization, it's wasteful, and that it actually goes against America's interest, and said it should be eliminated altogether. That was the recommendation of Doge, and yet you probably had several Doge people that were members of the Doge caucus actually vote to refund this corrupt organization. And so this is the real frustration that I have. And until, the American people get as mad as hell as Randy and I are, their members are going to continue to be swampy.
I mean, how frustrating has this you guys have been in long enough. How frustrating was watching this Biden regime ruin this country?
It was crazy, like I said, of course, as you know, we don't think that Biden was really cognitive much when he was in there. No, I mean, we could talk about the auto pen for a long time. How much of that was where the tongue in cheek, where was the pen jumps up, right, and decides on the desk and decides which bills to sign and who to pardon and so on and so on and so forth. Frustrating was really, I'm not sure that's even a heavy enough word, Tim. I'm trying to think of another, and it's making me frustrated. So, yeah.
I mean, and then to have you guys, this is not an easy job now. I mean, the first reconciliation was stress, but this one now, reconciliation 2.0, should be a little bit easier to pass. But you guys have to start peeling back layers and layers and years upon years of just, well, like you said, like auto pen signing of anything and everything they could possibly get through. That's a hefty lift for anyone. But what you guys are doing right now, that's a lot to get through.
Yeah, and I think you've got people on the conservatives in the conference that want to do more. We don't want to waste this or squander this time that we have. We've got a few months, and we hopefully will win the midterms. But what if we don't? And then if we just coast into the midterms and act cautious and don't do reconciliation 2.0, don't try to fix the healthcare system, then and don't try to fix the affordability crisis, then the American people are going to reward us with the minority, and we probably would deserve it. But what if we just actually try to get some wins on the board, and deliver for the American people? It's going to take bold, action, and it's going to mean that the president is going to have to lean in on Congress like he did in Reconciliation 1. But that's what it's going to take. And there's healthcare reform, for example. We saw the waste, fraud, and abuse within the Medicaid system, but you ask anybody, whether you're in an employer-sponsored plan or you're on the ACA, it's just too damn expensive to buy health insurance anymore. And just being insured doesn't mean you have access to health care. We have got to fix this system, not for just the people on the ACA and Obamacare, but for folks like you and I who are on an employer-sponsored plan, or I think 70% of Americans are on an employer-sponsored plan that right now sucks because this federal government has overly regulated the employer-sponsored marketplace. And we need to do what Trump is saying, which is let's reform the system altogether. Let's give the money to the people and let them pick the insurance product like the way that it used to happen. Back in the day, my father sold American Family Insurance, and he would sell health, life, and auto and home insurance. Right now, they don't. Now, most commercial market or consumer market insurance companies like Progressive and Liberty, they don't even compete in that market because they can't. We need to return to that.
Yeah, well, we're working on that. I can jump in there, Tim, too.
Yeah.
We've been working on that. You're seeing President Trump talk to the drug companies, for example. Why can't we be a favored nation status? Why can't we get the lower prices that a lot of the countries are getting? So Trump's keenly aware of all that, and there's help on the way. As you pointed out, we're into the House insurance through the House. I made a mistake, quite frankly, when we ran for Congress. Pardon me. I could have gotten on my wife's teacher's retirement insurance, and we thought, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to be in the federal house now, so we would use that. Well, it turns out Texas insurance is better than the federal insurance, and it's federal insurance that we're on is high. People think we get free insurance. They really do. They think our kids don't have to pay for college classes. They get free college. They think we don't have to pay Social Security. All of this stuff that has really been working against us, as Congressman Burrows points out, we're going to be on that. President Trump is on that. He's been focused on that. And what's happening across the aisle, our friends across the aisle hate him because of that. I've never seen anything like this.
Well, I got two of you here. You have a 1-seat margin. And this should be able to pass. I believe that everybody will come together for the American people here, and for President Trump's policies. But is there, and you don't have to name names, is there somebody when you see him walk in the room, you go, oh, come on, man, are you doing this again? Can we just pass this bill?
Burrows, I'll let you go first.
Oh, thanks, Randy. Look, I'll say, yeah, I mean, there's there's certainly members that sometimes have different priorities, and it is frustrating. I'll say, for example, increasing the SALT tax cap or the state and local tax deduction was not exactly on. It was not at all what the president wanted. It wasn't what the Republican Party wanted. But unfortunately, we had a small, fraction that demanded it. That's frustrating, particularly when it's not a conservative thing. But at the end of the day, we were able to come together and iron things out and get a massive sweeping change done. And I think that we've demonstrated that even with a very slim majority, we can do big things.
Yeah.
Your lips to God's ears. I hope so, but I'm watching some of our friends across the aisle, whether it's the SALT, there's several different items that people brought up that they wouldn't vote for the bill unless they could get, their way in a specific topic. And you can see them on the floor. You can see them when the leader goes down there, the speaker goes down to them, and a vote that's supposed to take us 50-minute vote, right? And you've been there long enough now to know that all of a sudden we have votes that take 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours because some of our friends, and this when we're in control, some of our friends won't vote for something unless they get their way. That's got to stop because of the thing that you said, Tim. We have a 1 vote margin. Come on, y'all. We've got to get together on this. Who was it said, was it Benjamin Franklin about the Declaration of Independence? We should either all hang together or we'll hang separately. I forget which one of our forefathers said that, but we better hang together.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to thank you guys. I know you had a limited time today. Congressman Weber and Congressman Burleson, thanks for joining me today.
Thank you. See
and
you
let's
soon.
get this passed. Now, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys later on this year.
Come on, Tim.
That's good.
See ya. All right, joining me now from the 14th Congressional District of North Carolina, Congressman Tim Moore. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Good to be with you today.
Now, listen, I want to talk about the difficulty of passing something like reconciliation, and you just happen to be the Speaker of the House of North Carolina, so you've been in this situation before. I think that Speaker Johnson's done a good job. I will say at times I've complained and I've made noise, and then I realize that when you're dealing with a couple hundred of the strongest personalities in this country representing over half of the country, there's a lot of interest that you have to work out, especially when you have a slim margin in the House. How difficult is it to pass something like reconciliation and make everybody as happy as possible?
Well, one thing I used to say when I was Speaker of the State House was, of my members, I didn't hire a single person, which meant I couldn't fire anyone, right? and that's the same situation with Speaker Johnson. In fact, he works for us because we can fire him, not the other way around. And I got to say, he's doing an amazing job.
Yes.
I am more times than I can count. I have just been so impressed with his leadership, with his integrity, with his ability to communicate the position of the Republican conference, and to get the votes together. And just as my two colleagues who were on before were talking about, we do have some members who will hold out for this or that. And look, everyone who comes here, they have the right to vote their conscience. I mean, that's how this works. Everyone, each of these members shook the hands, ate the barbecue, kissed the babies, did all the stuff to be here. And they have the right to vote how they want to do. But I think as good, solid Republicans, as conservatives, the legislation that we have been putting together to move this country forward is something that every single Republican should be in a position to enthusiastically support. In fact, I'm really surprised that more of the handful of moderate Democrats that we have aren't voting for more of the bills, because these have been common sense things. And I think what I see more or less is the disparity between where Democrats have just been absolutely hijacked by the radical left.
Yeah.
And so, but that is, at the end of the day, it is always challenging because you have to respect everyone's opinion and positions. At the same time, you got to get the legislation moving.
Yeah, it is not not an easy job, and I think that Speaker Johnson and also Chairman Pfluger's I got to give him a lot of credit. Pulling the Republican Study Committee together, making sure that everybody's on the same page to be able to pass these things. I know there's only a couple other members that aren't part of the Republican Study Committee. That's why I asked the last guys. I don't know if you heard this question or not, but and I'm going to say the same thing to you. I'm not going to name names, but when it comes down to like having a 1-vote majority, there's got to be somebody that every so often walks in the room and you're like, come on, man, just come on, just cut that part.
Yeah, it does happen a lot, and it tends to be the same. It tends to be the same folks or individuals over and over, and I don't understand it. There have been bills that have come up that I have not been entirely happy with. I have expressed those my position to committee chairs, to the speaker, to the leader, to you name it, on when those things have come up, and have asked questions. More often than not, there'll be something that I see, and I'm like, "Why is it this way?" And then when I get an explanation, it makes sense. That being said, there's a few. I haven't yet seen the perfect bill here that just was like, just had no issues with it at all. Because just like there's no perfect people, there's no perfect legislation, but we've been getting it right. We've been getting it right, and I don't understand why some of the members do the way they do. But you know what? That's hey, I didn't hire them either. That's up to their voters back home.
Yep.
And I used to joke around that there for a while there was a group that were always going over to the White House to have meetings with the president before they would vote some of the things. And I told somebody, I said, I guess they just need their bellies rubbed. I don't know what it is, but they'd go over. They were no's. They'd go over and they'd come back and they'd vote for the same bill exactly as it was before they went to the White House. Look, whatever it takes for people to feel better, that's fine. But I try to be a low maintenance member. I figure our team has enough other things dealing with so many pressing issues. If I have an issue, I raise it. But I tell you, I'm enthusiastic about what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. By the way, sometimes maybe those Donald Trump M&Ms from the White House. Maybe that's what gets people. They need the carbs from the White House to come back and do the thing. I wanted to pull this graphic up. So here's what the reconciliation bill, the framework for it is right now. Restore the American dream of home ownership, which is unbelievable that I believe the average age of first-time home ownership in this country is 40 now. I mean, I just bought my first house at 45, so I get it. But also, I spent a lot of time in towns where I would have never wanted to live. I'm back home in Texas instead of. I ain't buying a house in D.C. anytime, I'll tell you that. Deliver healthcare freedom and lower drug prices, reduce energy bills, prices at the pump, rebuild the American family, cut wasteful government spending, and codify President Trump's sweeping executive orders. This should be no-brainer stuff, right?
It should be. And by the way, I want to mention something about this. Isn't on this bill, but I want to mention to you another bill that I've actually filed. You mentioned about your first time for you buying a home. Yeah. One of the bills that I've done would allow like these 522 accounts, the college savings accounts that folks have where you can use it for college expenses, to use funds that aren't used for college to buy a home. It's if you talk to young folks, I mean, there's a couple things. One, it's the overall price. I mean, real estate prices have just gotten out of control. I mean, you look at what people paid for something 5 years ago versus now. I mean, it's is there going to be a crash, right? We don't know. I mean, there's always those things that you're considering when you're buying real estate. But that's the other thing. But it's really not the monthly payments that mess with folks. I mean, I'm not asking your personal business, but before you bought your home, I would imagine that the amount of rent you paid per month probably wasn't that much different than what your house payment is.
Actually, so you're going to love this. I lived in a little bougie part of Grapevine, Texas. I don't know how much you get out here, but like Grapevine.
I get down that way.
So DFW Airport, I was living on top of DFW Airport off of Main Street, and my mortgage is less than what I was paying in rent. So
there you go. And you're getting equity, right?
Yeah.
You're getting equity with something. And that's the thing. So the thing we kept hearing a lot about was the ability to have the down payment, down payment. So this is something to help give funds, so that folks can get the down payment there, because that's been the challenge. Yeah.
And also, the loan process, and we'll get back to the bill, but I'll just say, like, speaking out of recent frustration, the loan process itself, getting approved for a loan is, because I'm an independent contractor, they wanted everything. They wanted blood samples. They wanted everything, and it's like, are you kidding me? Like, the money's there. Yeah. Like, but it's because of the what the banks did a couple of years ago, messing up the markets. And, you guys have worked hard as well to try to kind of correct for that. I mean, there's been so much mess that has been created. and Speaker Johnson, Chairman Pfluger, the RSC, you guys have really worked hard to just kind of start. You can only start clawing back bits and pieces of it to fix this country, but there's so much more to go.
That's right. Well, I mean, it was the overreaction in some way. It was the overreaction after the 2008, 2009, 2010, 2008 really 9 crash where everything happened, where they went in and made it more difficult for good folks to get loans who were just people who are working jobs. And I'll tell you, if you look at a lot of the junk that was going on, that in the Obama administration they were forcing on people, they were and in previous Democrat administrations, they were trying to force the banks to extend credit to people that they knew could not make those payments. I could talk about this subject for hours. I was a realist. I practiced law for 30 years. I remember closing real estate loans for folks and going, are you sure this is a good idea? On these like adjustable rate mortgages. I mean, there was a lot of really just junk that was going on that led to the problems. But it's typical Washington at that time, an overreaction, with Barney Frank and all that crowd there, where they put all these requirements now where banks have a more difficult time giving loans. And so now one of the things that we've been doing in the Financial Services Committee is to right size those regulations to make sure regulations protect consumers, protect customers, but don't put so much barriers that you actually stifle access to credit. So that's one of the things, doesn't grab a lot of headlines, but that's good legislation that we've actually been passing this year as well to try to right size that regulatory environment.
Well, one of the things that you guys are going to work on here, and I know you're running out of time, making sure that obviously fraud, waste, and abuse, cutting it, making sure that money isn't just free flowing from the federal government out to wherever based on illegal alien headcount as well. Like how bad has it been? Like how bad? Like have you been shocked at the numbers when you've been digging into the fraud, waste, and abuse?
I really have been, and we know there's always going to be a certain amount of fraud, waste, and abuse. It's just there's crooks out there. People are going to do this stuff. But I mean, look at what's happened. Look at what's been exposed in Minnesota alone. I mean, look at this. It is just incomprehensible to me what's happened there. The other fraud, waste, and abuse, things we dealt with, in the first round of the rescissions packages and the reconciliation acts to get rid of a lot of this stuff. It's just, and I don't like to make these things partisan, but I'm going to call it like it is. Democrats don't seem to care about this stuff. As long as money's flowing to whoever their supporters are, it seems like they couldn't care less. So what happens is the people who need these government programs, the people who genuinely cannot take care of themselves, cannot support themselves, they're physically disabled, I mean, whatever it is, they're not getting the kind of care that they need because you have so many people ripping off the system. And I think streamlining that's key. And that's why I think President Trump has been hitting the nail on the head with his department heads looking at that. What Congress has been doing to deal with this waste, fraud, and abuse. I mean, we're not talking rounding errors at this point. Like I say, if there's ever any doubt, drive up to Minneapolis right now and just see which finally, and guess what, in that, it took an independent journalist shining light on this and bringing this to light. Had that not happened, Governor Walz would have not done anything about it. Nobody would have done anything. I mean, it's just, but that's not isolated to that community. That's happening all over the country. And I got to say, sadly, it's happening in a lot of these blue states where, frankly, there's probably a lot of people who need the services and they can't get them.
Yeah. Congressman Moore, thanks for joining us today, and thanks for all your hard work in Congress with us.
Well, glad. I know we didn't cover the subjects we were supposed to, but it was a great conversation. Yeah. We can come back and talk about what we're supposed to talk about next time. But I appreciate you having me on.
Happy to. Thanks for having you.
Thanks.
Thanks for being here. Sorry, my brain is fried. There we go. This is my fault. It's all my fault. I owe you one. All right, we'll talk soon.
All good. Take care.
See ya. Now joining us from Alaska. Now, are you in Alaska right now, or are you in Washington, D.C.?
I'm coming to you from Washington, D.C. I do represent the entire state of Alaska. We're a big state with a small population, so sort of like the Dakotas and Wyoming and Vermont, I'm the only representative in the House from Alaska.
And you got a good governor out there. I need to take some notes while we're about to get about a foot of snow in Fort Worth. So how do we handle that out here? I'm not familiar with anything below 32 degrees.
I'll tell you what, get the trucks out. Hopefully Mother Nature will warm up a little bit and melt that off for you. But if you're not equipped for a foot of snow, good luck. Good luck.
So it's going to be a time. Congressman, this is Reconciliation 2.0. Obviously going to be, I think, easily passed, should be easily passed with our slim majority in the House. What is the most important part of this piece of legislation for you?
Look, at the end of the day, I think we're hearing from Americans. You know, they want to make sure that they've got a reasonable cost of living. That's what Republicans have been focused on. That's what we'll continue to be focused on. And I think provisions that drive down the cost of living, that improve the take-home pay for America's working families, that's what we're focused on. And when you can drive up take-home pay and drive down, or at least hold, the cost of living, you're going to have a more affordable environment for Americans. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make sure that people who are working and contributing to the process, to the benefit of America, you know, that they have the ability to live a great life. That's the American dream. That's the American promise that's made to the American worker. And we want to make sure that that promise is fulfilled. So that is sort of the top line objective for budget reconciliation too. Obviously, we did a lot of that with the first budget reconciliation bill, keeping taxes low, actually introducing additional tax cuts, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, and preventing the largest tax increase that would have happened in American history. That's the product of the working families tax cut that we put forward last year. But we're not done. We've got a lot more of that work that needs to be completed. I'd personally like to see a lot of those provisions made permanent in law, because some of those provisions, they last for a few years, but we've got to find pay-fors to make them permanent. I want to make those permanent. And I also want to make sure that we're not doling out cash 24/7 to big insurance. And we got to remember, insurance companies are not incentivized to provide health care. There's this confusing message that comes out of Washington where people say, oh, it's healthcare. No, it's health insurance. Health care is what you hope to get when you have health insurance, but a health insurance company makes more money when they deny us care. And that happens all the time. I hear stories about it from my constituents back home. They have a legitimate health issue. They get denied. They get denied a second time, a third time. We've got to get involved sometimes, talking to the insurance companies on behalf of a constituent to make sure that they are covered using the insurance product that they're paying for. So this idea that shoveling more money into a system that's incentivized to deny us care is going to improve outcomes, that's wrong. And we need to fix that in Budget Rec 2, in my view.
And one of the things that people don't realize, again, you have so many rural communities in Alaska. You guys are you have remote communities all over the state. These little, your screen went off behind you. That's all right. That happens here all the time.
We're back. Okay.
Hey, at least you have a screen. My screen's turned off in the corner, and I got a whiteboard behind me today. We're working on it. But there are so many things that can directly impact these smaller communities in Alaska in particular. One of the things I just learned about the other day, and I don't know if you want to talk to it or not, and I want to talk about obviously the Rural Health Transformation Program that I think is going to help out a lot of people. But I learned about pharmacy benefit managers the other day, and how they just take money, how they just literally are just a middleman, just making money. What a sweet job. What a sweet gig. That drive up the costs of prescriptions. And just for me, fortunately, years ago, I was friends with a pharmacist who said, hey, when you go to pick up your prescription, ask them how much it costs before you talk about your insurance. And I'm like, what? And I realized just 2 weeks ago, if I would have used my insurance, it would have been $20, but it was $2 for my prescription. And so there is so much money being dragged everywhere. But I think you got something good here with the Rural Health Transformation Program.
We do. And I'll talk about Rural Health Transformation briefly on the pharmacy benefit managers question. My wife is actually a pharmacist for the last 20 plus years. And
so you know this game.
I know. You know what? What they've done is they took a layer of the health insurance marketplace that was intended. A pharmacy benefit manager is supposed to be negotiating with drug companies to reduce prices, to get the best possible price. But the problem was, and has been, that many of these pharmacy benefit managers have been purchased by the insurance companies. They create an incentive to jack up the retail price, a price that effectively no one pays. They create a synthetic rebate that they then pocket, right? So the net cost to the consumer goes up, and insurance companies have been limited in terms of how much profit they can earn based on prior legislation. Well, they've been limited on that profit. So what have they done? They've moved outside of that system, acquired pharmacy benefit managers as a way to juice their margins, to increase the amount of take home that they can make, because it's outside of the classic insurance system. And so this whole thing has been perverted into a scam perpetrated on the American people by big insurance to pocket additional cash. They're not negotiating prices down. They're effectively negotiating them up. And so it's a huge issue. It's a priority of mine. Many people in the conference, I hope we can see some additional progress in Budget Reconciliation 2.0. We just passed some legislation out of the House and sent it to the Senate here recently on pharmacy benefit managers. But these are the kinds of gimmicks that are driving prices up for everyday working families, and it's got to stop. Now, on the matter of the Rural Health Transformation Program, this is a transformational program to help increase access and reduce the cost of rural health care. And, we in Alaska, we're getting $1.4 billion over the next 5 years. Of course, we're the most rural state you could possibly imagine. 82% of Alaska's communities, you can't drive to them. You've got to fly or you got to take a boat. And so for Alaskans, getting access to timely, high quality, reasonably affordable care is really important because that's our lifeline out in these parts of Alaska. And so, when people talk about rural in what we affectionately refer to as the lower 48, we talk about rural down here as though it's a long drive. For us, it could be not hours, but days, or in some cases, even weeks before someone can actually get out to a primary health facility. So very important program for us. We're very excited about that. That was part of the Working Families Tax Cut that passed last year. And Alaska is positioned to take advantage of that. It's going to do a lot of good for us, but a lot of good for rural communities across America.
Yeah, people don't realize, here in Fort Worth, and again, I joke that we're not going to be able to handle snow tomorrow. We won't. Saturday. But there are so many options. I can go down the street and there's, a pharmacy on every corner. If I want, I can get Amazon to deliver it tomorrow or whatever, however you want to do it. There are communities that have one, maybe in Alaska. And I don't think people realize how far away some folks are from medical facilities.
That's right. That's exactly right.
So, all right. Well, Congressman Begich, I know you're out of time today, but I would love to have you back on, and we'll have a more thorough conversation about everything in Alaska soon. Some exciting stuff happening there. And like I said, you got a great governor up there, and maybe we'll see what happens in this next Senate race coming up.
We do. I appreciate the time, Tim. And let me just tell you, when we talk next time, I'd love to drill down on some of these critical mineral priorities for the administration. Alaska has 49 of the top 50 critical minerals on our nation's critical mineral list. And we are the answer to so many of these challenges that we've experienced in the last few years with China restricting the flow of rare earths, restricting the flow of critical minerals and base metals to the United States. Alaska and unlocking Alaska will be great for the rest of the United States and will allow us to develop those critical supply chains that we know we need to restore domestically.
Well, I was giving a hard out on you. If you got a couple of minutes, I'll talk to you about. We can cover it if you got the time.
Let's do it.
Because look, I'm a live stream and not a TV show. We can do this. No, I mean it is. I don't think people realize what we have. Number one, we're the number one crude oil producer in the world. Are we not as a country now? But
we are.
People realize what we have in Alaska that is so untapped, but it was so locked down. Every time a Democrat gets into office, they lock down our ability to use our natural resources up there and become the powerhouse that we really truly could be.
That's 100% true. Democrats have had it out for Alaska, and particularly under Joe Biden. There were 70 executive orders and actions specifically targeting Alaska's ability to produce critical minerals, base metals, rare earths, oil, and gas for the rest of the United States. They want to shut our state down. But our state is the answer to all of the supply chain challenges that we have as a nation. We have over 200 trillion cubic feet of stranded natural gas on Alaska's North Slope. We have enormous quantities of additional oil, and a lot of it is conventional oil. It's easier to produce than a lot of the oil that we're now producing. And so Alaska has this untapped reserve for the benefit of the entire nation. And we have been successful in this Congress, and I'm proud to say that I've been able to move legislation out of the House that permanently revokes the Biden era executive orders and actions, many of them that were targeting Alaska. We're looking for ways to codify, to make permanent these gains under President Trump. And we've been able to do a lot of that as it relates to Alaska in this last Congress. It's very exciting times for the state. It's very exciting times for the country, because as we restore that sort of base layer of materials, then you can start refining. Then you can start manufacturing again. Think about this. Even if you mine in the United States, if you can't add value in the United States, those minerals just end up in China anyway. And so if you're mining lead, zinc, copper, any of those base metals in the US and it ends up in China, the next time you see it is in an iPhone. All that economic activity, you've lost an opportunity on that economic activity. But when we keep those resources in the United States, we have the opportunity to restore a fully integrated domestic manufacturing chain, and that means a lot of jobs and opportunities for Americans.
And also, like, when leftists frame this, they're like, "Oh, Alaska is so beautiful, and you'll ruin everything, and you'll ruin all the natural, the penguins' houses or what." I don't know what they always kind of make it sound like we're destroying something, but Alaska, I don't think people realize how vast the state is and how little it would take to mine and refine these resources, right?
100%. I mean, we're 2.5. No disrespect, Tim, but we're 2.5 times the size of Texas.
Disrespectful.
So we're a big state. We're a huge state. And here's maybe the more important point, besides just Alaska's big and this is a small footprint. Far more important than that. Anyone who cares about the earth, let me tell you, all of us should care about the environment that we live in. I care, right? But if you really care about the environment, you should demand, not wish, not want, demand that the work of resource development be done in the very best jurisdictions possible worldwide. Who has the best resource development framework and track record? Alaska.
Yeah.
Not China. Every time that we say no to the United States for resource development, we're saying yes to China, and we're saying yes to an environmental record that is absolutely awful. Right? So people who claim to care about the environment and say no to places like Alaska, they're duplicitous. They're not thinking through the issue. If they care about the environment, they should demand the work be done here where they can keep an eye on it.
Why is it, and this hits home for you, why is it that when you see these environmentalists protest and these environmentalists go after, the climate change crazies go after things, it's always America. It's never China and it's never India. What is that? Why is that?
I think there's a bit of self-loathing on the left. I think there are a lot of first order thinking that goes on the left as well, where they never think past step one. And look, at the end of the day, if they are committed, as I said, if they're committed to environmentalism, a true environmentalist wants that work done in the developed world, in the United States, where we have the most stringent laws available anywhere. And these folks are not thinking past step one. And in many cases, they don't want to see any development at all, whether it's in China or the United States. And because they don't influence China policy, they can influence US policy. In some cases, some of these groups are actually funded by foreign interests who don't want to see the United States do well, who don't want to see the United States restore domestic manufacturing. And so they become the useful idiots for those groups to turn our industries off.
Yeah. I agree with you 100%. No, people don't quite realize a few things. They can't put into perspective the size of Alaska on top of how small it would take to then make us literally the ultimate superpower in energy in the world. And just
it's remarkable. I mean, think about this. Okay, we have been running the Trans-Alaska Pipeline, oil pipeline, since the 70s. Okay, since the 70s. This was the largest modern construction project in human history at the time. It's been run responsibly, has a fantastic track record. That's a 700-mile pipeline that's still in operation, and it runs hundreds of thousands of barrels a day off Alaska's North Slope. And so, look, if you could do it in the 70s, you sure as heck can do it today. And we're very excited about some of these additional projects that are coming online. We're working very hard for a natural gas pipeline that I believe will be ultimately very beneficial to our allied relationships in Asia. There's so much that Alaska is ready to provide, and I'm excited about this president, and I'm excited about the opportunity to further codify gains for Alaska, but gains for the entire United States in a budget reconciliation 2.0 framework. And we are working hard to help make that happen.
And thank you for all your hard work. Again, the difference also between Joe Biden and Donald Trump is that those 70 executive orders are probably auto pen, and Biden had no idea what was signed. So
very likely.
It's a very, very likely. Congressman Begich, thanks for being here. And see, look, I had the hard out, but we had an extra 10 minutes. And I'm so glad we got to have that talk about energy.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tim. Appreciate the discussion.
Folks, we're got a couple of minutes here before our next guest comes in. What a great time today, hanging out with the Republican Senate Committee. By the way, I want to shout out. I bought this hat because I don't take a lot of sponsors from things, but this is from Cup of Joy Coffee in Fresno, California. Really good Christian coffee shop. If you guys are out there, you should hang out at Cup of Joy Coffee. Also, let's see if I've got my Kalshi. Let's pull up our friends at Kalshi right now and their prediction that things are going to go through. Here we go. It has dropped to 11.9% chance of a government shutdown on January 31st, 2026. That's what I believe happens if this reconciliation doesn't go through. So this is going to pass. They believe that this is going to pass this time. I'm not going to bet against the government. Invest. But if you guys want to get involved over at Kalshi, we can take a look at all the other markets that are happening right now. It's very fun. Who will President Trump nominate as Fed chair is something that's up, which right now it looks like Kevin Warsh and Rick Reeder are the top two picks according to the markets. Also, will the Ayatollah get tossed out of Iran? And it looks like, it seems like a lock that that's going to happen. But 39% of people say before July 1st of 2026, it's going to happen. Again, it's really fun if you guys want to get involved over on Kalshi. Will Trump buy at least part of Greenland? It has jumped before January 20th, 2029, 43%. That's a pretty long stretch there. And before 2027, 26%. So a lot of fun stuff you can go and follow over on Kalshi.com, Kalshi.com/Tim Young if you want to go and use my little link to get involved. Also, while we're hanging out here, let's take a look at, again, we're talking about the reconciliation bill today. I want to show you some of the points of what is coming. I pulled this up earlier. Can we do it this way? Oh, the screenshot has to process. There we go. So here's the framework for the next reconciliation bill. This is brought to me by the Republican Study Committee. Again, Chairman Pfluger over there and Speaker Johnson doing a great job with what they have. And they have a one-seat majority, and it is very difficult to get things passed on a one-seat majority because there are, again, as I've said with many, many members of Congress today, there's so many different egos, so many different agendas that everyone has, and so many different things that different districts need to accomplish. And so it's very hard to get everybody on the same page. But this is a framework that we believe, I believe, and the Republican Study Committee believes will get passed in the next reconciliation bill. Restore the American dream of home ownership, deliver healthcare freedom and lower drug prices, reduce energy bills and prices at the pump, rebuild the American family, cut wasteful government spending, and codify President Trump's sweeping executive orders. I have a few other notes here I think you guys would like to see, if I can get them downloaded, but I will do that in a bit. Oh, there we go. Did I get that? This is what happens when you're self-producing. I'm going to go to, here we go. Oh, I can pull up multiples. I'm going to remove that one. All right. Here's polling on Americans who want to own their own homes, but it's out of reach for so many Americans. This is from the Republican Study Committee. Again, they sent me some facts here to talk about here from the Center for Excellence in Polling and FGA Action. Homeowners actually make up the majority of voters. 67% of voters are homeowners. In 2022, in the House, the U.S. House, they voted 13% in favor of the GOP. So if you own a house, odds are you want to avoid taxes. You want to actually, you are financially stable and you're working to improve your life and save money and advance not only yourself and your family, but your neighborhood as well. And those people vote positively towards the GOP, 13%. Then you go down here where it says renters who want to buy, but affordability is stopping them. 49% of renters say I would like to buy a home sooner in the next few years, but I'm afraid I cannot afford to do so. That is because of large down payments a lot on houses. People who, when you're paying exorbitant rent in a lot of places, like I will say now, and as I said earlier with, I forget what Congress, maybe it was Randy Weber. My mortgage is less than my rent was. And that is remarkable. But in order to get there, you have to save up your money to buy the house and put the down payment down. So again, 49% of renters say I would like to buy a home soon or in the next few years, but I'm afraid I cannot afford to do so. 24% say they're not interested in buying a home right now, but may do several years from now. 14% say they'd like to buy a home and I can afford one, but I'm choosing to wait because, again, prices are up there as well. And so there's a lot of market factors that are causing people to choose to not buy a home or wait to buy a home. And many of them are waiting. I mean, I got in on the market with a ridiculous interest rate myself, and I will refinance in a few years or maybe in a few months when President Trump gets the Fed to actually do something. Let's go to this other, well, the other stuff is PDFs and I can't pull it up. Darn it. All right. Well, I will pull up again while we're talking about the reconciliation bill. And in a couple of minutes, we will be joined by Congressman Marlon Stutzman and Mark Alford at the same time. No, sorry. And Jeff Crank at the same time. Oh, and Mark Alford. We're going to have a big panel here coming up. We're going to have 3 congressmen, Colorado, Indiana, and Missouri will be represented at the same time. We're going to have a little block of the center of the country hanging out with us all at once to discuss the Republican reconciliation bill. It's almost like the end of a fireworks presentation. We're going to have a bunch of big fireworks at the end here with 3 members of Congress at the same time hanging out talking about reconciliation. So let me pull up this. Here we go. Again, while we're waiting for them to join and hang out in the next couple of minutes, let's get this over here. There we go. The framework for the next reconciliation bill, it's very simple. Restore the American dream of home ownership, deliver health care freedom and lower drug prices, reduce energy bills and prices at the pump, rebuild the American family, cut wasteful government spending, and codify President Trump's sweeping executive orders. Also literally cutting back the fraud that we have seen. Now, if you think about when they just start to assess what's out there, and you think about $9 billion just in Minneapolis, how much more is out there? And how much more can we have eliminated? How much more money can we save the American taxpayer? And I think this is going to be a very good crack at saving the American taxpayer a lot of money. So it is going to be good. And hopefully we'll pass this week, because if not, we've got a winter storm that's coming through that is going to offset it for another couple of days. So hopefully it'll get passed before the storm hits, but if not, it will be passed shortly thereafter. But yeah, so far today, I don't know if you saw earlier, we've had a great set of congressmen with us today. Congressman William Timmons, Ralph Norman, Rich McCormick, one of my favorites, Pat Harrigan, Stephanie Bice from Oklahoma, who's also getting ready for this winter storm hell that we're going to go through. We had Vice Chair of the Republican Study Committee, Ben Klein, Randy Weber, Eric Burleson, Tim Moore, and Nick Begich. And coming up soon here in like 2 minutes, Congressman Jeff Crank from Colorado's 5th, Marlon Stutzman from Indiana's 3rd, and Mark Alford from Missouri's 4th. Should be pretty fun. Pretty fun to hang out with you guys today. And we've had a great conversation with everyone. And in case you're wondering, My email has just hit 50,000 unread emails. I was kind of watching that number in the corner today. When you get so much garbage email and pitches from people, 50,000 unread emails now in my personal email. So we should be joined by the congressman shortly. And again, let's go over and take a look at Kalshi and see what's happening over in the markets. Again, will Trump buy at least part of Greenland before January 2029, which would be his last day in office? 40% chance that will happen. I think it's going to happen before that. Also, it looks like it's a lock now that the Democrat nominee in 2028. I know that like they haven't even started running against each other. But according to Kalshi right now, the Democrat nominee in 2028 appears to be Gavin Newsom. So it should be very, very interesting. Should be very, very interesting what's going to happen here. And I think we hold the White House. We should hold the White House. All right, as folks are coming in here for the last, what I like to call the last round of fireworks here in this great 3-hour live stream with the Republican Study Committee today. Here we go. We've got Congressman Jeff Crank is the first one in, and I have to hold on, I have to blow you up. You look very tiny down in the corner there. Congressman, how you doing?
I'm good, Tim. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. We're going to get this done this week, right?
Yes, we're going to get it done. Absolutely. I'm very optimistic that we will. And what a move. I mean, we're going to spend less money, than we have been spending under the Biden CRs. This is great. We're moving back towards working for America again, and I'm excited about it.
I've also got, by the way, they doubled you up. They've actually tripled you up. Congressman Stutzman is here as well. We're gonna have a party here with everyone. How you doing, Congressman? Oh, you're not. You're muted. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
He's gonna be the sign language interpreter for the rest of us while we're. We'll wait for him to. I'll wait for him to get in. Just holler when you. I'll leave you on the screen and you just do. No. Can't hear him. Oh boy. All right. I heard him a second there. This is why we're live. This is what's fun about being live with you guys. Listen, I'll give Congressman Stutzman a second to get that figured out and come back in a second. But Congressman Crank, you're an expert on Iran. What's happening there? And I just got to pick your brain while you're here because I know that this is a specialty of yours. Are we going to see the Ayatollah gone? Are they going to overthrow that government? What's happening?
Yeah, I think this is a historic opportunity, right, for the United States, for the state of Israel, for others. I mean, I have talked many times about the opportunity that was missed in 2009 when the citizens of Iran, rose up really, and America left them there to wither on the vine, right? And we didn't come in under the Obama administration and support them. And we saw the Obama administration to go on and appease Iran so often, over the nuclear deal and so many other things. So this is a moment where America must rise to the occasion. We ought to do what Ronald Reagan did for the people of Eastern Europe at the time, who were fighting for freedom. And we had a president and a pope at that time who stood up and said, you know what, freedom is worth defending. Freedom is worth exporting. That's one of the great things that America can do. And I am very hopeful from the Trump administration and their public statements that we're not going to let this moment pass. We're going to be there and think of what that will do, not only for the nation of Israel, but for peace, the opportunity for peace in the Middle East. Iran is the last holdout of these crazy regimes, and even the other more moderate, I would say, regimes in the region recognize that, and they want this Iranian regime gone.
Yeah. By the way, we've totally lost Congressman Stutzman. He was over there. I was watching this. Sir. I'm obviously listening to you, but at the same time, I'm over there. But before he comes back, though, this reconciliation bill does so many different things. It's got affordability. It's helping people afford medicine more. It's helping people afford homes more. It's cutting back fraud, waste, and abuse. It's basically the best that we can do with what we're given now, and with a 1-seat majority. I mean, this is, what do you think is the most important piece of this entire legislation that's coming through?
Well, look, I mean, you're right. For us to have even, and you were just talking about this, for us to have even gotten this done, the first reconciliation is really remarkable with the thin majority we have in the House. So we're going to be able to get done what we can get done here.
Yeah.
But the way to do it, because of the Senate and the filibuster rules there, the way to do it is through a reconciliation. So my hope is that we can get more savings. We can maybe get some more savings out of the as we did through reforms, fraud and waste, fraud and abuse reforms and some of the entitlement programs. But also let's do something to fix this broken healthcare system that the Democrats foisted upon us years ago. I mean, they're the ones that voted for this, and now they continually blame Republicans for it. We ought to use this as an opportunity to drive free market reforms in healthcare, in my view, because if we don't, they're going to, somewhere down the road, if we don't take this opportunity now, they're going to keep pushing towards that single payer system. So to me, that's what we ought to do, is push for those free market reforms in healthcare.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a massive thing. I mean, you guys are really helping put America first and literally, not to use the term, but make America great again. It really is. Like, you're helping people, not just with health insurance, but with home ownership. Congressman Stutzman, can we hear you this time?
All right. Good afternoon, Tim. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I got you. I'm going to turn your volume up a little bit on my side. Your big focus on this, and it's so important, helping people live the American dream. You've got Congressman Crank was just saying, we're cutting health insurance costs and cutting healthcare costs. I mean, now, like, owning a home is such a big deal, and it's so hard to do. And this is a big focus of you in this bill.
It is. Yeah. Well, first of all, great to be with you, and appreciate what my colleague, Congressman Crank, has been saying, just about leadership. And that's the difference that we have here in America now, is that we have a leader in President Trump who's actually getting things done. Not only he's making the country safer, but let me give you just a quick number, and I'll talk about the housing piece, but 650,000. Under President Trump, the private sector has created 650,000 new jobs. Under President Trump, we've also deported over 650,000 illegals, whether it's murderers, rapists, it's the bad guys that President Trump has been going after. And that's what actually helps make the economy, it puts us in a position to grow. And, the housing market has been tough ever since President Biden was our president, because the cost of life went up. Inflationary effect on the country was so dramatic, and it's driven healthcare costs up. And he rose in, the interest rates went up under President Biden. It kept people in their homes. They weren't able to move as easy. People are trying to maybe go to a new job, or they're having to move to a different state because they want to get away from taxes in a blue state. Things like that. It put an effect of just freezing people in their homes. That's not good for the economy. We need people to be able to have flexibility and to buy and move and sell. So one of the things, though, that we've seen over time is just how the government continues to throw a wet blanket on the economy. And one of those places was the red tape that we saw with the USDA and HUD both having these environmental reviews that slowed down the process of building a new home. And so actually, I was just in a committee hearing with the Secretary of HUD that said, hey, he would support combining these regulations together between the two agencies to make it much easier. So again, there's so much opportunity right now, and President Trump is truly turning this country around and making America great again.
And I'll get both of you in on this one. By the way, about those jobs numbers, the 650,000, the difference between Trump's jobs numbers and Biden's jobs numbers is that they aren't reduced by, negative 1 million the month later after they get these big hits. Because that happened every month. They'd say, oh, we got 250,000 new jobs. And they're like, oh, actually, we lost 300,000 like the next month. It was crazy, the numbers, how they were so messed around with. It really is. This reconciliation bill makes a lot of sense because, again, working with home ownership, cutting healthcare costs, working with energy to make energy more efficient too. That affects the economy across the board. But also all the money, helping curb all of that money that went from that goes from taxpayers to illegals. and just getting thrown into states and thrown at states based on head counts involving illegal aliens. Like, how did we get to this point? Was it just unchecked governance with under Biden and Democrats? Either one of you guys can.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was. It was intentionally done, right? I think it was intentionally done to break the system. If you look particularly on healthcare, I mean, the Democrats want a single payer system. So the more people they can get onto, a public healthcare system, the better in their minds, the better that is for them and for advancing their goals. So they wanted to open it up. We've seen the expansion of Medicaid in all of these states. I mean, they want as many people on public systems and public programs so that the private ones are squeezed out of the market and the government, just by default sort of takes over. And so, I think some of the reforms that we did in the One Big Beautiful Bill were critical to getting control and reversing that trend. And I think we're going to see over the next many years a lot of money that's saved. In fact, I would tell you, I think we're going to look back on the One Big Beautiful Bill itself and hopefully on a second reconciliation bill and say that we saved America by doing what we did.
Congressman Stutzman?
Yeah, Tim, I would just say that Jeff is right. I mean, one of the things that is different between Republicans and Democrats is Republicans believe in freedom. We believe in individual opportunity, individual responsibility. And Democrats, they just want to see government be that equalizer that just says, you know what, everybody's going to have the same outcome. Well, you can't guarantee outcomes, but what we can guarantee is opportunity. And if there's, ever a time that we've seen, a difference between countries, it's now between the United States and the rest of the world. President Trump is over at Davos right now, and he's telling them that, the United States has been, we're the ones that are lifting up all the countries right now as far as economically. I mean, our economy is the largest economy in the world. We've got the best and brightest people that are continue to increase productivity and to invent. The innovation still happens here in America. People come to America because they know America is the greatest country in the world. And I don't blame them. But President Trump is also saying not just anybody's going to come to the United States and milk off the system that the Democrats want to have created. And I do think it was very intentional that they have set up a system that they can take from those who are paying taxes and give to those who, are willing to take advantage of the government. I totally understand. I mean, my family, I grew up I grew up in a farming family. We didn't have a whole lot growing up, but my parents worked hard to provide for us kids. And I understand that there's times when people do need help, but that's what those social safety nets are for. But they're not for, spending billions and billions of dollars to programs that go, to very few people. We often joke, and it's kind of sad, but the Democrat donor apparently is daycare directors, because they're the ones taking all this money from the federal government, but it's ultimately taking money from taxpayers. And I think that that's what Democrats want. And they build up a system, like Jeff said, that has enriched very few people at the behest of the Democrat Party.
Yeah. Joining us now as well, because it's, like I said, all the big fireworks coming out at the end. Congressman Mark Alford, who, by the way, he's the chair of the RSC's messaging task force, which means he's going to have the nicest camera and the best audio of anyone.
Well, thank you. We've been working hard.
You got a 6K camera there. That's a black magic I think on you right there. That is a nice camera.
I think you're right. And I tell you what, Tim, good to be on your show. And yeah, we're working with other members of our conference now to help us in our messaging, help Lisa McClain, our chairwoman, and also help in our production values so that, we can get our message out more clearly and effectively.
And you have one of the best comms people over there in Cali too. I've known her for years, and she's fantastic.
Yes, we do have great. It is a team effort here on Capitol Hill.
It really is. I gotta ask, and this is for all of you guys, but Congressman Alford, I want to get your opinion first. And I've been asking this all day long. You have a one-seat majority. You have a lot of people who represent, a majority of the country. Every district is very different. Every person has a little bit of an ego to themselves too. how
Egos
difficult.
in Congress? What are you talking about?
Get out, right? But how hard of a lift and how much of a congratulations should we be giving? And I think it's a lot to Speaker Johnson and Chairman Pfluger being able to kind of herd the cats around this, because it's you guys are all on message, obviously, but there are some folks out there who kind of are stragglers and need to catch up, and they're able to work with folks and get this messaging together and get these bills passed.
Well, I think it's very attributable to August Pfluger. You know, he came on as the chair of RSC with I think a main objective to make RSC even more relevant and more of a forefront in our conference. We agree with the leadership. We're not in opposition to the leadership of our conference, but I think it's an amplification of the majority of those on the Republican side who are conservatives and want to get that conservative message out. And as Communications Task Force Chair, that's what I'm helping Chairman Pfluger do. We're doing that with this second reconciliation bill, rebuilding the American dream in America, and picking up some of these pieces that we were not able to attain during the one big, beautiful bill. You might remember, Tim, early on, there was a lot of consternation and conversation. Should we have two bills or should we have one? And we thought at the time, there is no way we're going to get two of these bills passed in the short amount of time that we had. And there was so much heavy lifting and so much time consumed on the House floor and in committees to get the one big, beautiful bill. I think that decision was a right one, that we got this done. We got President Trump's America First agenda done. We made these huge savings for the American people, which we are just now starting to realize, which are going to come to fruition, which are going to be a great tool for us to retain our majority in the U.S. House. But the second reconciliation package is going to amplify that even further. An ancillary bill that's going to help with housing, that's going to help with healthcare, and that's going to help with energy.
Ultimately, all of this adds up, and let me see if I can bring this up and not lose somebody here on the. No, we can do it. Everybody's just really tiny.
Story of my life. Yeah.
Ultimately, all of these elements, everything that you guys have discussed, everything we've talked about with all the members all day long, is about the American family, right? It's making sure that people can afford to live in the country and can afford to own a home, can afford healthcare, can afford energy. And actually, there is a big piece of this in rebuilding the American family that we discussed earlier today. What does it mean for you guys to actually? I know when you went to Congress originally, you probably weren't thinking you'd be there to actually have to fight for the American family, to stay a unit and be able to afford the American dream. Which it's crazy to think that we were in such bad shape now that we have to correct for that. But that's where we are, right?
Can I take a stab at it, guys? I don't want to dominate.
It's hard to do with three congressmen. You guys,
yeah.
I'm just going to throw it, and then you guys go.
But Tim, this is exactly why I got into Congress. Joe Biden and his administration put a war on fossil fuels, and they ended up putting the crosshairs on the backs of the American farmers and the American family, driving up energy costs, pumping trillions of dollars into the economy, which raised the interest rates. We had the highest level of inflation that we've had in 40 years at 9%. We're down to under 3% now. This president, this Congress has done the yeoman's work, and it was work, and it will continue to be work. And for the Democrats to glom on to this affordability, making a crisis out of it, this is a crisis that Joe Biden created. All right, we are having to fix it. We're the tow truck drivers, and we're pulling this car out of the ditch and getting it back on the road and putting the American family back in the driver's seat.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tim, if I could jump in, you obviously don't have a New Yorker on here because they would have been the first one to jump in there. You got three Midwestern guys. We're all courteous and kind, but Mike Lawler, he would have been right out of the gate on that one. But no, anyway, but Mark is right. I mean, the fact that this is, clean up on aisle 5, because what Joe Biden and the Democrats did in 4 years' time, I was just an absolute wreck. We're driving the price, just the cost of living. I mean, whether it was gas prices because they shut down the Keystone Pipeline, that was one of the first acts that President Biden did when he came into office. Then, of course, he shuts down all of the energy production. Actually, I mean, since President Trump has come into office, we are now the largest producers of LNG in the world. I mean, it was Qatar for many, many years, but the United States is now becoming the largest energy producer, not only providing energy for the American people, but now we're able to sell it to other parts of the world, which only makes America stronger and helps support the American here at home because of more jobs, more income and wealth for the American people. So President Trump, what we did in the big, beautiful bill, it's sometimes hard to explain all the things we did, but we kept taxes low. We cut taxes. We, of course, made sure that the border was secure. We made sure that our homeland agents have what they need down at the border. But a couple of things that we often miss is that there's a school choice component in the big, beautiful bill. That gives the American family, the American, the parents, empowers them to choose where they send their children to school. That's a big thing for us in Indiana. Also, we defunded Planned Parenthood. That alone was a huge win for us as pro-lifers, because we believe that that life begins in the womb. And so there's all these pieces that we did. And then the deregulation piece of it, we have saved the American taxpayer almost $250 billion in cost just by rolling back regulations. That has a huge impact, because the regulatory environment can either slow down business or it can allow business to flourish and speed up, and still using common sense in our regulatory environment. So these moves that Republicans and President Trump have made they're already having a big impact on the economy.
Congressman Sussman, thank you. I know you gotta run. You got a bunch of stuff to do. I was just told. I'm getting texts from everybody. Congressman Crank, do you need to go, or do you want to get one last line in?
Yeah, one last line, and I do have to run. But
thank you guys. Yeah.
Look, I think the bottom line is we've seen the Biden administration and what they did to drive up costs. No greater examples, I think, of that than what they did on automobile standards, causing cars to be almost unaffordable for the American people. On energy, we see it every day. This war on fossil fuels and what it's done, with no regard for the single mom who's out there who has to decide whether she's going to pay her utility bill or go, send her kids to camp one year. I mean, those issues, food, all of it was bad government decisions. And we've come in and reversed all of that through the One Big Beautiful Bill. And we're going to continue to do more through this second reconciliation bill as well.
All right. Thank you for being here, Congressman Crank.
You got it.
What's happening? Is somebody printing
yeah, no, that's a call that I think they're calling for votes right
Uh-oh.
now, but I still have some time. I'd be glad I got here late. Sorry about that.
No, that's all right. And I have trouble cutting off and getting through other congressmen. If they hang out, I don't want to be like, get out of here, Congressman. I got to get.
Let's keep going.
Let's go. Listen, I just got to say this. The Republican Study Committee is actually delivering for the American people. And I think you guys are truly the group of conservatives who know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this is going to be pretty awesome what you guys are doing with this reconciliation bill. Like I said earlier, and it kind of goes back to this because, again, you're in leadership and messaging. How difficult has it been to because I think what you're doing is common sense, but I think it's not as exciting for people because they don't realize how it'll hit them and how it'll impact them, and things take time. How difficult is it for messaging for you to be able to communicate this to the American people?
Well, I think sometimes we shoot ourselves in the foot in our conference. I mean, we had a big bill last week on appropriations. And look, an appropriation bill is not going to be perfect, right? We don't expect it to be perfect. We get the most conservative bill we can out of the House. It goes to the Senate, and they end up spending a lot more money and throwing more projects in it. And these deals are negotiated. So when it comes back to the House, there are things in it inherently that we don't agree with, but the worst option is a government shutdown or a continuing resolution. Okay. Yeah. And so there are things in there that we are trying to improve on. We're trying to reduce spending in a lot of these areas overall. In one of these bills, the state and foreign operations, we cut by 16%. Overall spending this year in appropriations, we're cutting about 7%, which is a huge number considering where we were. Now, is it going to get us out of debt? We're $38 trillion in debt. No, not overnight. When you consider that 74% of our spending is mandatory spending, Social Security and Medicare, all right? Until we start looking at how do we reform those programs, it's going to be it's going to be tough to get out of the debt that we're in. Okay.
Yeah.
So our messaging depends on our members. It's not just me. It's not just Lisa McLean as the conference chair. And I think that's one thing I really, in particular about the Republican Study Committee, we're all on the same page. We
Yeah.
are all conservatives. We are fighting for a more conservative Congress. We are fighting for reduced spending, sensible spending, not to be total isolationists in this world that's gone crazy, but to make truly America first, along with President Trump, to make us the strongest that we can be so we can have the greatest impact around the world, as President Trump you're seeing right now in Davos doing. But our message really depends on others coming alongside of us and sharing that message in a unified, singing off the same song sheet, basically. And right now, we don't have the luxury of that overall in the conference. We're trying to move in that direction. But we have, you know, as we mentioned, we have members from New York who really needed this SALT amendment, the SALT money, this last go around to support the state and local taxes for them to return to Washington. And we need to keep the majority. So we realize that in the conference on the Republican Study Committee, it's much easier for messaging because we're pretty much all on the same board of what we need to do. And that's where August Pfluger is such a great leader in this, is because he really makes sure that everyone is heard and that we all get on the same page and let's all sing off the same song sheet. And that's where I'm helping his great communications team, whether it's through the new podcast that they established, the new media row that they initiated. You know, the conference has had this media row. We had one yesterday, and it's good. But I think August Pfluger realized that folks like you and others who are in the new media, who have these large, huge followings, especially with young people, we need to start attracting these young minds and win them over. They are reasoned, rational individuals. We need to present the facts, let them make the decisions, and win them over with great argumentation. That's what this new media is all about. And I'm proud to be on your show, Tim, and so thankful for your doing your part.
Oh, and I'm happy to help out the team. I have always have and always will be a conservative, and I really appreciate what you guys do there, and I'm always available to help you all out with you know, sharing the good news, not the Bible, but the other good news.
That's right.
But before I let you go, you know, midterms are coming up, and it's just such a strange uphill battle again. And because you focus on messaging,
Right.
you know, you see the left will just say anything. You have a lie machine in The View. You have a lie machine in Mayor Fry and Tim Walz up in Minnesota saying they're, you know,
Yeah.
ripping people off the streets, which, by the way, if they were actually just ripping Americans off the streets, they'd probably get rid of those protesters first. Just I don't know why anybody.
Well, that's
does
good
that.
point. Yeah, I would start with them if I was going to do something illegal. But
Yeah, if somebody's
I'm not.
blowing a whistle in my face, I'm going to throw them into the back of a van. But we don't do that in this country. But
Right.
you have this messaging that it seems like people are believing, and I think, and I just want to get your insight into it. Like your messaging is, hey, we're saving American taxpayers' money. You're going to be able to afford housing. You're going to be able to afford healthcare. We're cutting out these middlemen in health, in pharmaceuticals. Like there's all these incredible things you're doing. Do you have trouble or do you struggle with overcoming the sensationalism of the other things when you're presenting rational
Every day. And you know, I was in the media, traditional media, for 35 long years. I finally got out when I really felt like I couldn't do any more to help save journalism in America. I have some ideas about how to do that. They're going to have to be self-regulated. We're not going to do it from Congress. It's a First Amendment issue. But there are some things that I think journalists should do to regain trust. And here I am, you know, preaching from a congressional position. We've lost trust in America too. But it is tough to compete still with the legacy media. The average American at home, especially older folks like myself, they're watching ABC, CBS, NBC. That's where they're getting the majority of their news. Young people are getting it from new media, which is, you know, easier to get the truth, I think, from new media. It's tougher when you have legacy organizations that still believe in liberal causes and do not higher diversity in the newsroom when it comes to diversity of thought. They'll hire diversity of gender, socioeconomic background, racial diversity, but not diversity in thought. They do not actively recruit conservatives to sit in those meetings and decide what stories are going to be covered, who's going to cover it, and what truth do we hope to glean from this report. Now, CBS is starting to do that. They're catching flack. But I think what you're seeing is a news organization under new leadership and ownership that is realizing if we don't get on board with just telling the truth and not really taking sides, not only are we going to lose money, we may end up losing some licenses on a local level by CBS owned and operated, which the FCC has threatened to do because of interference during election time. Under the Communications Act of 1934, these public licenses, in order to have a license to operate, you have to operate in the public interest. Is it in the public interest to deceptively edit news pieces to try to sway an election? And that's where Brendan Carr is coming from in dealing with folks like CBS and others. Cable is a different story. They don't operate under the same requirements to operate in the public interest because the airwaves belong to the people, and cable does not belong to the people. But that's another lecture for another time. Your question was, is it tough to get your message across? Yes, it is. The more voices we have, like you just had on Jeff Crank and Congressman Stutzman, that's why we're doing this, to make sure the American people know that we are singing off the same play sheet of truth to get our country back on the right track. Because this, I don't want to be too dramatic, but this is going to be, I think, one of the most consequential elections of our lifetime, the midterms. If we do not maintain the majority, and I hope we grow it, but if we do not maintain the majority, January 3rd of 2027, Hakeem Jeffries will be the Speaker of the House. Maxine Waters will be Chair of Financial Services. It's going to be crazy town on Capitol Hill. Everything will be about the impeachment of President Trump, investigations. Nothing will get done for the American people. And that's what scares me. And that's why everyone listening right now needs to mobilize and get out and vote, get Republicans back to Capitol Hill so that we can finish President Trump's America First agenda.
It is. I agree with you, and it's so strange because a few years ago when they said it's the most important election of a lifetime, when anybody would say it, I'd be like, okay, yeah, fine, yeah. But when you have now Democratic consultants coming out saying anybody who's associated with Trump we're going to arrest, I mean, and they're just being open about it. Like I take them at face value. It's not. I don't think it's even like crazy talk anymore. It's sort of like bad things are going to happen if we don't hold the Congress and then hold the White House later on.
Well, Tim, they're like a drowning victim, and I've said this. They have no vision, no leader, no message.
Yep.
They got Jasmine Crockett, I guess, and Mamdani in New York City. Two communists basically, but they're like a drowning victim out in the middle of the lake, and they're flailing around. And if you go near them, they're going to take you down with them. Mm-hmm. And I think they're going to take our country down. I know that sounds maybe a bit histrionic, but
it's not.
I don't want to think that about a fellow American, but these people are over the edge. They are so worried about losing power. That's what this whole issue is about immigration. They let 12 to 15 million illegal aliens into our precious nation so that they can increase their voter rolls and win more congressional seats. That is all this is about. They don't care about these illegal immigrants other than that they are potential voters.
Yeah.
So anyway,
let's
end on a happy note.
Let's hold on. Let's end on it. Let me pull up the graphic. Let me pull up your cool graphic. But I do want to actually, one day down the line, I'd like to do a full hour with you and sit down and talk about media.
Let's do it.
In 2011, I was the young member chair at the National Press Club. So I represented all media under 35 when it was still kind of relevant. And I've been in major media for a while, and also kind of just got out of that and was like, I'm not doing this. And I still get asked to consult sometimes major networks for things, which is very
Good.
interesting. It's interesting, but I have no faith in these, like the ABCs of the world are just never going to change.
Well, the key is reaching these people in journalism schools and getting the right professors in journalism school. They're teaching what truth is and what true reportage is, rather than an ideological bent and trying to, back when we can go on. Back when I was getting in journalism, it was after Watergate, and everyone wanted to be Woodward and Bernstein. Here's the deal: tell the truth, no matter where that truth is, and let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah, yeah. It's very easy to do, telling the truth, but a lot of organizations don't like that. All right, let's do that. Let's do the fun stuff. Let's do the good
All
stuff.
right.
Here's what we're going to get past.
All right.
The framework for the reconciliation bill. Again, great graphics. Look at your team really's got it going on over there. That Callie, that great group of people.
She is
restoring
fantastic.
Restoring the American dream of home ownership, delivering healthcare freedom and lower drug prices, which I just learned about PBMs the other day. Holy moly, when you start realizing
It's scary.
It is scary, just what they've done to take advantage of the market and Americans. Reducing energy bills and prices at the pump. We had the congressman from Alaska on to talk about that.
Mhm.
Rebuild the American family. Cut wasteful government spending, which is pretty easy to do after the Biden administration, and codify President Trump's sweeping executive orders. You guys have a hefty task over there, but it's going to get done.
Well, Tim, thank you. And I've got to go vote. Got my voting card right here, and we got to vote. We don't want to miss this vote. So thank you so much for having me on. And I do look forward to it. Let's do an hour together sometime. We got a lot to talk about.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here, and thanks for your committee. And I want to thank, get out there and go vote. I want to thank Chairman Pfluger, Speaker Johnson, and all of the congressmen that we had on today. And of course, Callie over there at the Republican Study Committee. You guys are fantastic. Thank you for including me and thinking of me in talking about the reconciliation bill and being able to get the messaging out there to the American people. So I want to thank you guys all for being here. It's been a great 3 hours and 15 minutes or so today. I also want to thank Shell from Shell Shocked and Andrew Follett, my buddy who does a lot of the research and whatnot. I want to thank you guys for watching. Again, the RSC has really gotten it together. They are the conservatives in Congress, and they have herded cats to be able to get this bill passed, and it will pass, and there won't be any shutdowns this time, I believe. And so does Kalshi believe that. Hold on, let's pull that up. But this has been a great live stream, and well, I'm not going to pull it up. But great live stream. Glad to hang out with all the members of Congress again. Thank you to the Republican Study Committee and Chairman Pfluger and Speaker Johnson. And we're going to get it done. And I think there's a lot of work to be done, and there's a lot of messaging to be done. If you got to watch any part of this, you can go back and take a look at all the different congressmen that we had on and listen to the conversations. I would really recommend Rich McCormick when we talked about savings in healthcare, because this guy's been in it for a while. There's just a lot that was covered today, and a lot of hefty issues that you should be informed about. These guys really know what they're talking about. All these members of Congress, they are not slackers out there. And there's so many different issues that have to go into a reconciliation bill. So not an easy job, not an easy job for staffers either over there. So I want to thank you guys for being here today. We will be back regularly very soon. As you can see, my set is currently a whiteboard, but it's going to be changing into some screens and some pretty high-tech stuff here pretty soon. It's just all around me in boxes. I'm like looking around this room. There's literally wires all over my desk around my computer right now. But I want to thank you guys for being here. And again, thanks to the Republican Study Committee. It's been a great time today. And we